Okay, showing live, but no stream yet.
And it should be up in a minute. Well, that camera shot's all screwed up.
Oh, and live.
They have that thing we were talking about before has affiliate codes to get you $100 off accessories.
Oh, fancy.
I mean, what accessories do you need?
I already bought the expensive accessories.
Heart rate.
Speed? Who gives a shit? You really care what your heart rate is?
Were we just talking about Ryan's obsession with technical
As
stuff?
long as it's more than a beat a minute, we're good.
I think the people who like actually exercise.
Hey, your watch tells you that, by the way.
Husband does
Cycling.
the opposite of running, biking. Not sitting, biking.
I guess I should sit on IRC.
Oh, yeah. I've been looking at people getting these. They've just been being delivered. RS3.
Yeah, that's pretty.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How you do?
I looked it up, of course. It starts at like 51, I think.
Yeah, they're expensive.
That was cheaper than I thought it was going to be honest.
What are we talking about?
but Still more than I would
Don't know.
ever
Is it a
pay.
Volkswagen?
No, it's an Audi. Same difference.
The Volkswagen.
Ah, yes, it is the Volkswagen. Do you like our emission?
I was waiting for that.
Yes, we have very good emission standard. You like it. Very much.
They should get the Hans guy back.
The unpimped the auto guy.
Yeah. Unpimp the emissions. Volkswagen emissions in the house, yeah.
Literally.
How are you doing, Mr. Josh?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Welcome back to Skype.
Good.
Great.
Yeah, Alan, it's the 2.5 liter,
Oh, did it update you?
5-cylinder turbo. 400
What
horsepower.
updated me?
Stock.
Skype.
I don't
Skype
know how
is
much you
desperately
do
trying to
those.
update.
No, mine was fine.
I honestly don't know how much you do this. How much is left?
I mean, they're pushing it pretty hard. What is Skype trying to do here?
Doesn't matter, you're not using it on a laptop.
Downtown,
Not right now. Just not right now. Just go away.
where everybody goes.
Oh,
Uh-oh.
I know what I didn't do.
Downtown, someone just pissed their pants.
Mm-hmm.
I had something I was going to put as a pick.
You're experiencing owl moment.
Dumbness.
I had a
you
pick
had
around
the
here
thing
somewhere.
Where you had the thing you knew that there was a thing that you were going to use as the pick. But
Yeah, but I might just be lying to myself. I don't know.
Might be.
I've resorted to
There's a difference in lying to yourself and lying to everybody else.
I have a picks of the week folder in my Dropbox that I will drag links of shit to now
That's a good idea.
as they happen
Well,
because
that's cheating.
That's good.
I just
Yeah,
that's cheating because you're supposed to just scramble like during the podcast for them.
Exactly.
We scrambled before the podcast.
What did I use last week? When I was on that trip. Did I use anything interesting?
bourbon.
Lots and lots of.
Yeah, that was my pick last
That
week.
was his pick last week.
What was the sound quality of my headset like last week?
Crappy.
Not the worst I've ever heard, but not good.
It was high quality. It was a Plantronics, like a high quality one. Like build quality was really good and everything. but
Electronics makes a good headset.
It was
Considering.
owned. It was owned by the U.S. Department of Commerce. So
So it's tapped.
Probably.
Hmm.
Yeah, I got nothing. Well, screw it. We'll figure it out as I go, or I won't.
Do it live.
Right. It's pretty weighty.
What are?
These 10 gig Ethernet.
It means pass has got a lot
Yeah.
of heatsink on it.
It does have a lot of heatsink. I'll be honest with you. I can see under the thermal pad.
Ooh, that's... it's
Well, just
it's air
just
gapped
on
for
one
security.
side of it.
The thermal pad is kind of squishy in there. It's like puffed around the edges from what I saw.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's to the
Oh,
to the
it's
left
because
of the
the-
silicon.
It's because the die is
It's really small on the package.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see that now. Or the thermal pad is just bigger than the whole package.
Wait, can we get a Ooga and smash them afterwards?
No.
no.
Oh.
These are
That is
100
an
and something.
awfully small thing to be putting out that much heat that requires that much heat sink.
Better safe than
You know
sorry.
what they say?
Well, these do put out a decent amount of heat.
It's not the
10
size
gig.
of the boat. It's the motion of the ocean.
These
They
are
do say that.
successive serial numbers.
That's funny.
I don't know if I've ever seen that before on products we've got in.
Well,
That we just ordered from Amazon.
And the Macs are numerically
the last digit is
one over.
one over the
Yeah.
other one.
Dead
Yeah.
beef.
Huh. Are we almost out of Mac addresses?
No.
No?
No. They're damn near infinite.
What is
Yeah.
it? 12 characters?
Yeah, it's 6
Hex.
Numbers and
it's
yeah, but I think
yeah,
like the first
6 pairs.
Six-
or the
six bytes.
manufacturer.
right? 6 bytes.
It's 3 sets of 4. That's how I type them in. Like I type them in and set in as like 3 sets of 4.
Oh yeah,
I
it's
hate
12.
people
It's
like
12.
It's 12
It's
characters.
12 byte. Oh.
It's 12 characters.
Not binary, Alan.
Yeah.
Okay, so 6 bytes. 56.
I don't know why
Two
you're trying
hex.
to convert it to bytes. It's hex.
Because IPv4 is 4 bytes.
You're just trying to figure out a number for how many addresses there are.
IPv6 is not
IPv6
6 bytes.
is 24 characters, I think.
not 6 bytes. I
Okay,
don't know.
it is.
It's ridiculous and I hate it.
It's a 48-bit. Wait, MAC address.
40 bits.
There's 281 million billion
How many zeros
possible
we
MAC
got?
Well,
addresses.
consider it the first
2
half
to
of
the
it.
48 power.
The first half of it is like the manufacturer ID.
So IPv4 is 32-bit value. IPv6 is a 128-bit value.
Yeah.
Lord.
That's not 6 bytes.
And MAC addresses are
2 to the 48. Yeah, 281 trillion. Sorry.
So 48 zeros.
What? No, not 48 zeros.
40?
281 trillion
128.
numbers.
How many nibbles is it?
I don't know. So 128 bits is... I don't know. We didn't go that far. There's only 64-bit computing. How can we even talk about 128 bits of anything? Nobody
The
can read
future
it.
is here now.
Nobody can read
Not
it.
even sure it exists.
I mean,
When-
128-bit is 16 byte.
We once had this new kid show up in the reverse engineering lab and just claimed, we asked him how many bits in a byte, and he answered 4. So his nickname from that point
Just kick
forward,
him out.
his nickname from that point forward was the Nibbler.
Just kick him out. Nope, sorry. Bye-bye.
Yeah, he knew it was a brain fart, like as he said it, but
Yeah,
it was like
yeah.
red, no blue. Yeah. 4. I mean 8. Oh, the damage is done.
ZFS is a 128-bit file system.
Those
I think
AFS.
How
Spark
nice.
screws around with
Universal
written too.
universal unique identifiers are 128-bit value.
What?
UID.
UUID.
There's a standard for UUIDs?
Apparently.
Yeah, there's like 4 different standards
Oh, yeah.
for it.
That was my point.
Well, no, it's all part of the same standard, but there's like one for globally unique, there's one for random, there's one for derived.
128 is the common key size for symmetric ciphers.
Thanks.
True.
I'm just reading the
Fascinating.
Wikipedia for 128-bit.
Nope. Anyway,
MD5 algorithm is widely used hash function producing 128-bit hash value.
MD5?
MD5.
How many bitcoins is that worth?
So there are as many MD5 hashes as
But there-
IPv6
but there are
IP addresses.
But there are MD5 cache collisions.
There's also IP address collision.
That's true.
yeah.
Frequently.
Look how big is the BGP address?
Six addresses.
So if my Nintendo
BGP?
64 was 64 bits,
There's
my
not-
GameCube was 128,
Those
right?
BGP doesn't get that big.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Right?
Prefix.
every generation of console
Yeah.
doubled the number of bits.
There's not that many of
So,
those.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
So we're at like
PlayStation
Because
one
there
was
was an issue
32
where they
bit.
ran out of the tables
Yeah.
on the routers.
I
Those,
think
like,
we're at
last
a
year. Oops.
we're at a gigabyte now. Can we just start?
Yes.
Let's just do that.
Okay.
Based on recent. Oh, look at this recent activity tab. We have the quick access recent activity. Look at that. I can just
don't know what the fuck
from
you're
Google
talking
Drive.
about.
watch this not be the Google Drive to get to the show notes.
Gotcha.
That bar has been
Show
there for
notes?
like years.
It is like the first time I've seen that bar.
Because you don't have enough activity.
What? It's other people's activity.
But
You don't
stuff
have any
that's shared
friends.
with you. Yeah.
You got updated to the new one.
Yeah, I wasn't on the.
Welcome
It's
to
it's got a
Google Drive.
Facebook like thing. To
I
it
was.
now.
I think I was
Ooh.
intentionally opted into the classic one, and they finally told me to f
You
off.
guys should not use docs.google.com.
I like it more.
You
I
should
don't,
use
I don't care that you think
drive.google.com
different.
because it's an actual file listing.
I have business
Yeah,
courage.
I use
that lets me
Drive.
use Docs. I was trying to teach Emmeline, who was on my shirt today.
How'd that go?
Not great. She focused very much on the antenna
Uh-huh.
here, and she kept pointing at it and saying castle.
Hey.
Castle.
That's good.
Because at the top of the castles that we always see, there's a flag
Yeah.
at the top, right? So there's rhyme and reason to
And a
it.
fat Italian guy sliding down it.
Yeah. Or what is she? So she doesn't say Cinderella, she says Cinderonda. And she shorts it to just Rhonda. Rhonda's.
Help me,
Rhonda's
Rhonda.
castle.
That's
Rhonda's castle.
Cinderella's cousin from
Yeah.
the other side of the tracks.
Yeah, that's sort of like the Wiz.
Yeah.
So is that the Russian version? Version?
Whoa,
Wait, what?
Hey, hey.
The Russian version. Bobanmiet.
Yeah. Can you turn
Terrible.
up
That joke would've
my,
been funny if you
my
didn't
speaker
flub
in my
it.
ear
Yeah,
down
you-
just a little bit?
Yeah.
Um,
Technoscope is showing us how many zeros are in those things.
Good.
Which made him get kicked by the bot in the chat.
Hey, Josh.
Yeah, I don't
What?
think he finished the zeros.
Good.
Okay, we're good.
What did I do now?
No, I was having you talk again just so I could. I think Technoscope had a seizure.
No, he's showing us how many places the.
Well, he got kicked for it.
Oh, really?
Good job,
Stop
Technoscope.
flooding.
It was the
He
bot.
overflowed the buffer with
If you
zeros.
do,
He got
if
banned.
you do 3 posts,
No, not banned.
in
But
2
no, he got
seconds, I think. Get banned.
I see.
Oh.
I see.
Does it unban?
Well, you get kicked. Sorry, not
Just
banned.
kicked. Oh yeah. All right, here we go. You ready?
Yep.
3, 2. Hey everybody, welcome to the PC Perspective Podcast. This is episode 457, being recorded on July 12th, 2017. I'm Ryan Shrout.
I'm Jeremy Hellstrom.
I'm Josh Walrath.
I'm Alan Malventano.
Welcome to the show, everybody. It's I'm back here. I'm no longer in the backwoods of North Carolina. I guess technically that's not the backwoods. I was on the beach.
So can you be in the backwoods of a beach? That
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense.
It was super secluded where we were at. So we were down at Hatteras Island on the outer banks of North Carolina. But of course, everybody knows that there's just OBX based on the stickers that
Oh,
people put on the
God, I
back of
hate
their
that
cars.
so
God, I hate that stuff. But I had been to the Outer Banks once before. I don't know if you guys had ever been to like Kitty Hawk. Nag's Head is like at the top. Kitty Hawk, famous for where the first flights occurred with the Wright brothers and all that stuff. And they have a really cool kind of like museum and area there. You can walk the field where they measured off how far each flight was and that stuff. So it's pretty cool.
Cool.
Where my buddy lives is literally 2.5 hours straight south
Okay.
on like 30 mile an hour, 35 mile an hour roads, 2 lanes,
Yeah,
all the way
backwoods-
down.
backwoods
Where
roads.
literally it's 30 minutes from house to anything that sells groceries.
Yep.
And I'm not a fan of that, as it turns out. Like for a week is fine. A week is fine because
Could you just like the Amazon Prime Now stuff for
everything
food?
he buys is Amazon. His UPS
But
UPS
food too,
guys-
right?
As much as he can get.
Yeah, yeah.
Because like they probably can't do Amazon Fresh type stuff.
So his UPS guy hates him.
Well, probably not. It keeps him in business. if
It's like a
nothing else.
loading dock at his house.
Yeah. Well, I happen to be coming back from the beach.
Milk and cookies for the delivery guy.
Well,
Yeah.
the UPS guy walked up and he was dropping up. He said, "You don't live here." And I said, "I don't. It's my buddy's house." He says, "Okay, well, I'll just leave this here for him." I said, "Okay." And I asked him, I said, "You here a lot?" And he goes, "Every damn day."
UPS driving 30 mile an hour.
And then
roads.
literally, that was our second to last day there. The day we left and the other groups were still there, there was like 3 boxes on their door, and he took a picture of it and sent it to me and my buddy and said, "Every damn day." And I said, "Fair enough."
That's
So
funny.
welcome to the show where we talk about computer hardware, not just remote beach locations.
Yeah.
We do record the show on Wednesday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific, at pcper.com/live. It's a URL on the internet. It's a website. You can go to it. And you can see our stream and our chat room, and you can interact with us and talk with everybody. And it's super fun and awesome and all the great things that you go along with it. If you need a little reminder about our streams coming up, you can go to pcper.com/subscribe. You get this page. It asks for your name and your email address. And we just send you a notification, the day of, the hour of, that we're going to do a live stream, whether it be our podcast or some other event. Last week, 2 weeks ago, we did the RX Vega.
2 weeks ago.
It was 2 weeks ago. The the Radeon Vega Frontier Edition live stream. That actually got a huge amount of attention. I don't think we were mentioned on the podcast. We had 2 websites were live blogging our stream. And they were taking screen caps of the benchmarks we would
results.
take, and they would add it to their website and do this. It was, at first, I was like, that's kind of neat, because it's like they're making a log for me of all the stuff that I'm saying and doing. And then I just realized they just basically stole all of my graphs and put it on their website as a picture, whatever. It all got taken care of and removed and taken down. But it was interesting that there was a lot more interest in that than I expected there to be. I say that because on Friday we're getting the water-cooled version, and there's a very small chance that we do a live stream with that. It's a very small chance, depending on what time it shows up and what else I appear to be doing that day. I don't expect there to be a huge difference from the air-cooled version to the water-cooled version, especially because I know Steve over at Gamers Nexus kind of like attached a water cooler already to it and all that type of stuff. So it doesn't seem to light the world on fire. But I'm still gonna freaking paid for the thing, so I'm gonna do a freaking review on this $1,537 with shipping video card.
Might as well.
Yeah, I can't return it.
I mean, yeah.
Newegg has no returns. Even if I don't open this product, I'm allowed to
can sell
return it. I'm going to sell it to somebody in this chat room at the end of the show.
They don't have returns on just GPUs, period? Is that what it is?
I think, is that true, Ken? They
Surely you
started
can
a
return
no
other
returns.
I don't know.
Like in the last
on
2
the
months,
580s
last
I
month?
bought, they were no returns. I don't know about other GPUs.
I think it's a new policy for GPUs with the most recent mining crap
Makes sense.
that occurred, right? So you can't just buy it, mine with it for 29 days, and send it back and buy another one.
That I think is shady. If you're going to go 29 days, just keep the damn card.
No, that's why they're doing exchanges only, no returns.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. They're trying to prevent that type of stuff. Yeah, I can exchange it. Somebody in the chat's asking if it's DOA, I can return it. Yeah, they'll let me exchange it.
But they'll
I can
send you
just
another one.
They'll just send me the other one. I can just keep exchanging it and keep getting as many different as I want, and maybe I could see what the variance of overclockability of all these cards.
Ryan
is.
goes through 15, all of Newegg stock of Vega water-cooled ones.
Also, we have our Patreon campaign ongoing at patreon.com/PCPer. This is your place if you feel like we do cool and interesting stuff and you want to directly contribute to us, right, on a kind of a monthly recurring option, right? You can pledge 1, 3, 5, 10, 20, whatever you want to do per month. There are options available for that there, and there's a good description on the site about why we do it and why it helps and all that type of stuff. So anybody who can support us through that is super, super awesome. We greatly appreciate it. And as is always the case, if you increase or become a patron during the show, I will read your name off and thank you personally for it. For example, Travis Stern, as we were starting the stream, edited their pledge from 333 to 555. I don't know if there's a significance
Cheers, mate.
to that, but thank you very much, Travis.
Skip
They're trying to
skip
get
the sixes, dude.
They're trying to get Josh
That's true.
to say those things, but they're not using the magic number.
Maybe he'd upgrade from a Core i3 or a Ryzen 3 to a Ryzen 5, and next week he can upgrade to the Ryzen 7.
All right.
You never know. Never know. So thank you guys for that. It's very welcome. So if anybody wants to contribute to that, again, xeon.com/PCPer. Greatly appreciated. So let's get into the news of the week. We're going to start with, there's a bunch of different things. We've got Xeon launches, Thunderbolt GPU testing. We didn't talk about this last week. I thought
No.
it was.
I have 3 stories this week, so you're welcome. We're keeping the site alive.
Holy
Thank
crap.
you. Yeah. How many did he say he had, Alan?
More than me.
Josh, how many did Ken say he had?
More than me.
Oh.
But I got one in the queue.
Jeremy,
More than me and
Jeremy, you
Josh
post a lot of news,
together.
so I'm
True.
good with that.
Well, I can beat him in a day. But
Fair. So let's talk about first the Xeon Scalable processor launch. I'm not a huge fan of this name, Xeon
Yeah.
Scalable,
Yeah.
but that's what they're kind of moving away from just Xeon to Xeon Scalable. They're getting rid of their naming scheme is different. They're no longer E5, E7. Did they go up? Did they do E3 before? I don't remember.
Yeah, they had E3s.
Are they
before.
getting rid of the V2, V3, V4 crap too?
Yes.
Yes. So now we're Xeon Platinum, Gold, Bronze, Gold, Silver, Bronze. By the way, this is I sent you guys this picture when I first saw these a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
Privately, obviously, it wasn't because it was still under embargo. But this is the
Yeah, except you edited out the really good stuff.
oh yeah yeah
Never mind.
for scale.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Shit.
That is a normal size business card over here on your left, and these are processors. The one with the weird dangly thing, piece of PCB sticking out the side, is the one with OmniPath fabric built onto it.
Yeah.
Obviously very specialized for high-end server configurations, but just the size of the processor is substantial. If you want the basics of this is that this is the Skylake SP upgrade for Xeon. So this is the Skylake architecture refresh for Xeon. We came from Broadwell to Xeon. From Broadwell to Skylake.
Yep.
In the same way we just recently went from Broadwell E to Skylake X on the HEDT high-end consumer side, right? With that, you get the same kind of performance enhancements with a little bit of additional stuff added into it, right? So you've got the new core architecture, the mesh architecture we've talked about. You're getting what they call socket level performance improvement, which basically means up more cores per socket. Now you're up to 28 cores instead of, I think before they maxed out like 24 cores per socket, I believe is right. They've changed from QPI to UPI, QPI standing for Quick Path Interconnect.
What's the
Ultra Path
I thought you were supposed to
Interconnect.
see a doctor about UPI.
Yeah,
Is
yeah,
this
you
just
definitely
Ultra?
should.
Not even not
No,
even
Ultra. Yeah, Ultra Path.
But Ultra what? Ultra path? It's an ultra path?
Yeah.
it's ultra.
So the ultra's not even talking about the speed, it's talking about the
It's
path.
ultra speed. It's just implied.
Oh, okay.
So you get more more
faster,
PCIe
better.
lanes. You get a new chipset that has more PCIe lanes. There's some interesting things like you can actually have a dedicated 6x16 connection to the chipset to allow for further expansion and better utilization of that. So you're not just depending on DMI 3.0, right? So they upgrades to DMI 3.0 on this one, just like Skylake X does.
Yeah.
But you can take advantage of 16 of those lanes, direct connect to that chipset so that you have...
That's like 4 times
Yeah.
DMI3.
Yeah. So if you're connecting things to that chipset, then you can take advantage of it that way.
Huh.
There's a whole bunch of different configurations. We've talked about the mesh architecture already. This gives you an overview of the differences between like platinum, gold, silver, bronze. You know, you get platinum is the highest core counts, highest socket counts up to 8, 3 UPI links up to DDR4 2666, up to 1.5 terabytes of memory per socket,
Sweet.
which is substantial. And then you go down to gold, which is up to 22 cores, only up to 4 threads, you know, those types of things. When you get down into this may be a little bit easier way of looking at it as well. When you get down into like gold, you're up to 14 cores. Gold, it's even more dumb because gold is broken up into the 6100 series and the 5100 series. So the gold 61s go up to 22 cores with 3 UPI links. The gold 5100 series is up to 14 cores with 2 UPI links.
It's weird that it goes all the way down
let
to...
me ask this.
Yes, you may.
Is shop keeping these SKUs gonna be insane?
Thankfully, Intel has a terrific database called ARC. They do a magnificent job with this in terms of making it searchable, allow you to do
but I'm talking about,
comparisons.
hey, I need this core. Who do I talk to? Well, we don't carry that one. We only have 8 SKUs.
Oh, sure.
And so you got to pick out of those.
Here
You
is
mean
a
you
SKU
don't
list.
have the 56 other ones?
Here, oh, that's a big picture. Let me go back here. This is the SKU list. And if you're looking at home and you can't read any of it, that's not an accident.
Supposedly,
It's otherwise known as the Towering Inferno of graphs.
Yes.
Supposedly, the address, addressable RAM is limited to 786 gig unless you pay like a $3,000 premium for a different SKU.
So
Correct.
the Platinum 1.5 terabyte is the M series of processors. And if you get the non-M series, you're limited to 768, not whatever you said.
Okay,
so
so if you-
half of
The
1.5.
M stands for money.
The M stands for memory.
Money.
But yes, right?
They're literally adding one more address line.
Yep.
Yeah.
Literally.
It's an expensive
Hey,
address.
There's
but if
one-
you need
only
1.5
one value.
terabytes of RAM,
But
you're going to
wait.
pay for it.
To be fair, like the memory, in order to support 1.5 terabyte, you have to support a different type of DIMM that's higher density.
That's true.
That maybe I'm just making
It's
this
not
up.
$3,000
Maybe
worth
ju-
of
Hey,
IP.
we don't want to qualify these other
But
67
you
SKUs
might
on
be
this memory.
binning
So.
your memory controller to support that.
Maybe.
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 I'm just, benefit of the doubt. I don't really know. I agree.
$3,000
$3,000 is a lot. But again, here's the thing. I'm gonna let me skip to the pricing stuff because we'll
So
come
what's-
back to all this
the-
later.
the
But
other
I
thing
wanted
that
to say
catches
this on the-
me-
I wanted to say this in the pricing. These start at $13,000.
Oh, start.
No, like at the highest.
No, it's the
Okay.
top.
You said
At the
start.
height. Well, yes. Their peak is 13,000, right? For the 1.5 terabytes, you can go down to 5,200 for the 1.5 terabytes. The person who is worried about getting 1.5 terabytes per socket of memory does not give a crap about a 5,000
No.
or 7,000, even $13,000 processor,
Right.
because they're spending 10 times that on memory,
Yeah.
if not more.
Yeah.
And then whatever else they're building the system for.
Yeah.
Right. So,
It is funny this comes out after, remember we were briefed on Intel's Optane thing where they were trying to displace 768 gig of memory in a server with 128 gig and using Optane SSDs
oh, right.
to, try to augment that and get most of the performance benefit.
So I'm going to scroll
So-
down through this list
I'm
so you
sure
can
Intel
see.
would be fine with losing the price premium if they could sell them Optane instead of having them buy DRAM from somewhere
That
else.
is true because you're also spending
True.
I'm
I'm still
several
going. This is
$1,000s
still
on
the
things.
same table. There we go. I believe there are 58, 54, 58 processors launched, different SKUs.
So it's weird that it goes all the way down to bronze, and yet bronze still has 6 channels of DDR.
So they all have 6-channel DDR4 memory, but you go down to 2133 memory
Yeah.
speeds.
yeah.
Bronze is, only up to 8 cores. There's no turbo boost on
No,
it.
Turbo, that's interesting.
It's only
Yeah.
an 8 cores.
It's like the
CPU,
Core i3 of
but
Xeon.
it almost has more
essentially.
DDR channels than it has cores.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah.
Like this-
And the other differentiating point is the Gold 6100 and above has 2 FMAs for AVX 512, whereas below that
Yeah.
you get a single FMA.
Yeah.
So you're cutting your throughput in half
for AVX instructions.
for AVX instructions. Yes, correct. Architecturally, I don't feel like we need to spend a whole lot of time on this. Again, the Skylake X, Broadwell E to Skylake X differences, most of it apply. You get the new cache structure, although there are a lot more cache options for the Xeon family. There are some microarchitecture enhancements, including the out-of-order windows and allocation queues and things like that that come into play. AVX 512, much more important in this space than in the consumer HEDT space that we talked about it before.
Yeah, your typical piece of desktop software is not going to be using AVX.
Video encoding and transcoding might be something that does.
Sure.
Right. I know, for example, like Handbrake integrated AVX2 really early in the lifespan of AVX2.
Yeah.
So yes, you're right, but there's the standouts that too. This is interesting because we were at the briefing and there's this diagram, the Skylake core, and then there's like this L2 cache out to the side and this AVX up top, and somebody just kind of like jokingly asked, like, well, that's not really how it looks like. The guy's like, actually, it's pretty close. Like we pretty
He
much
busts out a picture of like the die. And
pretty
just like,
much,
hey, look,
pretty much we had this core and we just needed to add L2 cache to it. We needed to extend AVX, so we just bolt.
kind of tacked it on
Right.
and wired it in.
They glued it on.
No, absolutely not. It's all monolithic. Definitely not glued. They talk about different AVX clock speeds because you're using more power. The home agent and the caching agents are actually divided up per core on this mesh network, which basically spreads it out. So on average, the access time between any given core and any given place of memory, or its access to a home agent of some kind, which would connect you to memory or whatever, is less than in the previous generation. But they still have, like, the discussions we had about Skylake X where, the latencies were a little bit worse at the maximum in order to improve the average, still applies here to the Xeon Scalable release. And they have some slides in here that go over like cache misses and what gets better and what gets worse. They're fairly
The table is just insanely
that.
long.
You're looking at the part table still.
The table on page 2.
UPI, the Ultra Path Interconnect, not terribly different. It does move up the max speed from 9.6 to 10.4 gigatransfers per second, but it's doing it at lower power.
Oh, okay.
So it's on that. They have this thing called Intel Volume Management Device, which is not
VROC.
Storage.
VROC. It is for storage, but this is kind of what enables VROC.
It's like the pathway, not
it's
the RAID implementation on top of it.
It's the architecture that lets you.
The VMD is what they call the integrated endpoint that stops OS enumeration of devices under it.
Okay.
Right. So it handles everything else at that point, but you still have to have drivers for the drives installed and all that type of stuff. But it kind of helps map the different NVMe PCIe devices under one tree.
Yeah, it does. It's just the CPU doing the same thing that like a chipset would normally do for if you set up a RAID.
Yeah,
because usually the chipset intercepts it, but now you have things hanging directly off the CPU.
So the Intel VMD driver sets up and manages the domain, enumerates event error handling, but out of the fast I/O paths.
So in theory, if you're Facebook, you would write your own driver on top of this for the specific I/O needs you have instead of using Intel's VROC implementation. Probably.
You could.
Yeah.
Like I want to be able to address these SSDs in this specific way. What's the closest hop I can get to them?
Yeah.
Do that sort of thing.
Yep.
Probably.
Yeah. They've improved turbo profiles, implemented speed shift, but obviously it's not as it's useful in a different context than in consumers. Right, in consumers for speed shift, you want interactivity, you want usability, like bursty workloads.
Right.
For servers, it's not really the case, but you can basically use speed shift to shift between what they call energy performance preferences. So, do you want the ramp up to be higher, slower, or faster to get to that max clock speed type of thing? So there's a little bit of a
and so you can choose
manage that. I don't know if that's a software driver or a firmware level thing.
That was requested by a lot of cloud vendors, and specifically application integrators, because you could tune the turbo profile and reduce your latency for a request without increasing your power footprint. So they actually use management to tweak that. It's a really I'll send you guys a white paper. It's a really good read.
Okay. Cool. They have some with the integrated fabric we talked about. I don't know a whole bunch about the OmniPath stuff, but that's
just an insane throughput thing.
It's 16 lanes of PCIe. That's how this OmniPath connection connects to the processor die directly. Yeah. This is kind of a way to implement it. And at a system level, you can actually design boards that can support this processor and not the fabric version, like both, but it's, a little bit different there. There are 3 different die configurations for this. 3 different monolithic chips that were made. The XCC die is the one that goes up to 28 cores. It has a 6x6 mesh, 5 rows of core and LLC, 2 3-channel memory controllers on either side. And it's interesting to talk about like the physical layout of this becoming more important as you look at these topologies in 28 cores. How quickly can each core access a memory controller? Becomes very important. 3x16 PCIe gen stacks, 1x16 PCIe for MCP use, like we were talking about before, and up to 3 Intel UPIs. And then they also have the HCC up to 18 core and the LCC up to 10 core. So you can just kind of see like this is how they're binning and producing and all that type of stuff.
I have a mesh related question that you might not actually have been briefed on the answer to.
Sure.
So if you're looking at any of those drawings with the different meshes, right?
I am.
So if you're trying to get up to a memory controller, which looks like is along the top there.
No, the memory controllers are the gray on the sides.
Oh, the ground sides. Okay, so say you're trying to get, to the left memory controller, and you're at the core that's in the same line, but all the way on the right.
Yep.
Is the horizontal mesh row looking thing is that a bus? So that's one hop.
Yep.
Okay, so they're buses.
You're at most 2 hops from anything on this.
Right, because it's X and a Y.
Yes, correct.
Okay. So each thing is, you wouldn't have to keep hopping core across one line.
No.
It's literally just a bus that traverses across all the. So there's an X-shaped or cross-shaped bus that passes through every single item.
Yes, and the diagram it's difficult to diagram something like that, but that's supposed to be the indication of the arrows that like are looping at both locations.
Okay.
But yes.
So that's okay. So that's even faster than I was imagining it when I first started to see this mesh thing. Right.
It's like city planning.
Ugh, the worst.
Yeah. Except every road will instantaneously get you to anywhere along that road.
If you look back at our mesh story and look at the mesh versus ring interface, you'll see like city planning when you were designing for 8 streets in this. Oh crap! Now we have 24 streets. Right. And how do we do this? And this is kind of like, okay, we're designing for 28. Now where do they go from here? It may still get more complex, but you know. There's a new chipset, aka Lewisburg, the C620. There's like all kinds of iterations of this. This is essentially the X299 chipset / Z270 chipset, like capabilities in terms of you get 20 lanes of PCIe 3.0. The previous chipset had 8 lanes of PCIe 2. This is pretty cool in that it also integrates 4 10 gigabit Ethernet PHY on it.
On where?
On the chipset.
Just inside the chipset.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
So quad 10 gig.
Yep. Or 100 gig, I think.
140 gig, probably.
Intel was doing...
no. 410 or 1 gig. Yeah.
So I wonder if that's the one that could be actually ganged together and just be considered 40 gigabit.
Probably.
Intel was showing that off like a couple
of
years
ago. This is the Intel Ethernet
yeah.
connection X722.
Well, do you have enough bandwidth over DMI to do that if you don't use that by 16 thing? Do 40 gigabit?
Yeah, the fabric thing's different.
Yeah.
Well, so you're talking about like, is 4 lanes of PCIe enough for 40 gigabit? The answer would be no.
Yeah.
But it would have to use the other 16 lane thing or whatever.
Yeah,
yes.
sure.
Yes. And they show that. So they've got quick assist technology in here, which is kind of interesting. It's basically the chipset has a dedicated crypto and compression hardware accelerator in it to offload the CPU and allow you to do kind of like bulk crypto on these network connections and or storage connections, which is kind of neat. And of course, there's like 7 different chipsets as well to compare with all these. And you can see different chipsets will support, let's see. Yeah, you know, some of the base models don't support 10 gigabit Ethernet. The quick assist capabilities in these chipset differs, right, on what their throughput, maximum throughput can be. You know, weird stuff like that. And then you get your max PCIe uplink, you know, which is what's supported back to the processor or whatever. And they have different thermal loads and all kinds of weird stuff. Performance-wise, we didn't get processors in for testing yet. We're working on getting them. But
it's a pretty serious freaking lineup, like in specs and everything.
We want one of all of them.
One of each. We want to test all 58.
It's just
and
surprising,
really
like, you know.
So here's the
Not
thing.
only that, but you need all the chipsets as well.
Oh,
and
yeah.
now you can do a matrice of how many tests you need to perform to cover the entire spectrum of
The
parts.
answer is 0 because I quit.
I'm going to just sell all that crap and,
Yeah.
you know,
Cash in.
retire.
I'm going to retire.
So they talk about performance, 1.65x average generational gains on 2-socket servers. Now, the problem with that is they're comparing the E5 2699 V4, which is a $4,000 processor, to the, I believe, $8,100 or $10,000 8180 processor.
The 3/4 of a terabyte version of the
Correct, not the 1.5 terabyte,
which is an extra 3K.
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
So
Because they didn't want to overdo it.
yeah, well, I mean, most of these benchmarks that might not have helped. The point being that there are generational performance gains, but they are not at the same price level.
Yeah.
Right. So you're not getting 1.65x at the same price.
Well, I think they picked the highest one because they were trying to, you know, specify or signify or whatever that, like, look, this is the one with the most number of cores.
Correct.
Which you would think would have the most disadvantage because so many cores trying to talk to each other.
Interestingly, the E5 2699 V4 is a 22-core part, not the maximum of last generation. I think there's a 24-core, but it might be at significantly lower clock speed. So that may be the highest performance part.
Yeah.
That they had in Broadwell E. So we already went through the giant list of stuff. It's a really interesting launch because EPYC exists now.
It does.
And I don't think anybody, even AMD, is going to tell you that they're even attempting to address the same number and variance of spaces that Intel will address with the Xeon Scalable line.
Well, is EPYC going to have CCXs as far as we understand?
What do you mean?
Core complexes? Like, is
Yes,
that architecture?
It's the exact same thing.
It has to have core, just more of them.
It's 4 Zen die on one package.
Okay.
That's how you get to 32 cores.
Yeah,
so like AMD will have an advantage on core count over the Xeons, but
Sure.
Xeons are going to have better single-threaded capability. So in total, I would expect a 28-core processor to the 28-core Xeon Platinum to outperform the 32-core EPYC 7401, 7601, whatever it is. But that's a $4,000 part versus a $10,000 part.
Yeah.
Right. So AMD is going to be super, super competitive in these spaces. I think Alex, you posted in our chat today some. I don't know where you got these comparisons from, or if you made them up yourself.
Those were just ballpark.
In the chat, someone's saying there's Chris and M's already saying there are already benchmarks, supposedly.
Oh no! Like Tom's Hardware did like benchmark testing on this stuff. Anantech did, yeah. But the interesting thing is. Testing a server processor is very different than testing anything else, right? And it's very much so about like workloads and specific.
Yeah.
And it's almost not all about the processor performance as much as it is the platform capability and all that too, which is obviously very difficult to get into. And so you just kind of have to do your CPU benchmarks and then say
you really have to consider. You have to consider the full implementation package,
which is hard to do in any kind of reasonable time frame, and also in any kind of what am I looking for? Like something that encompasses a bunch of different ideas.
Yeah.
But Alex put in here like the EPYC 7601, 2 sockets, is 64 cores, right? $8,200 for the parts.
That's the leaked price.
Yeah.
No, that's real.
It is real?
Yeah,
that's confirmed?
That's real.
Okay.
The Xeon 6130, which is one of those 58 parts that came out today of the gold class, which is a quad. If you put it in a quad socket system of 16 cores each, you get same 64 core count total.
And how much is that?
$7,600. So it's actually a little bit less. But consider you're going from a dual board to a quad board, which is incredibly different price point, incredibly different form factor, really. Yeah. And the things that you can put in it and attach to it are very different as well. So there's a whole bunch of other stuff that kind of goes into it. But it's interesting to see that, Intel's not stupid. They understand 2 things. One, they have a huge dominance in this market. They're 99.5% of the market today. So there's a couple things from that. One, they know they're going to lose market share this year because some people are going to buy EPYC, and so by default you're going to lose some of that market share. But they're also smart enough to realize that all we need to do is have some specific answer to that EPYC 7601, and maybe that's it. Maybe that's that quad implementation that Alex kind of put together, right? It's not perfect, and there's lots of different variances here. I really think AMD will do very well with EPYC in single socket and 2 socket systems.
Yeah.
And
I mean, there's an EPYC single socket SKU that's 32 cores for like under $2,000.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is incredible.
And Intel didn't. All these processors are up. The minimum support is 2 sockets, right? So they didn't release any like single socket Xeons, which they have done in the past, right? Parts that are intended for single socket.
You could always put a intended multiple socket Xeon in a single socket.
Correct,
board.
But those inherently would be higher cost or higher price.
Yeah, you're wasting an awful lot of QPI links.
Yeah. So it's super interesting. I don't have a whole lot else to say until we actually get our hands on parts and start to look at performance and maybe start to see kind of systems released with these configurations in place. But I think it'll be sooner rather than later. So 58 processors launched, guys. Small day.
Here's a stupid question. It's not really applicable to most people. The fabric SKUs, the Dash F fabric SKUs, they have that X16 hanging off the processor PCB. If you have those in a quad socket or an octo socket setup, can you pull off 4 or 8 fabric links to the backhaul?
I mean, I guess in theory. But see, when you get into that, you're talking about not bare bones systems or motherboards you're buying. You're looking at specific, like HP's building a system for Cray or whoever it's going to be, right? So I don't see how that wouldn't. I don't see why that wouldn't be possible for them to do. It's just a matter of how much are you going to pay for that implementation, right? The idea of 8 sockets of this size on a single system in general kind of boggles my mind, like how it even physically fits, and then how you get enough DIMM channels to attach to each of those to support close to the maximum capacity of the CPU.
That's where the fiber
comes in. All of your DIMMs on risers.
The fiber comes in that way because you don't have anything else inside that system ever possibly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I assume they could. They didn't mention anything about it, but if it were a detriment, they probably wouldn't. So I don't know. Next up, Ken did a little testing with the external graphics adapter over Thunderbolt 3 called the Akitio.
Sure, why not? I've never heard it pronounced.
Akitio. The Akitio node.
Yes.
Is that what this is? So is this just like the bare bones Thunderbolt 3 GPU dock?
Absolutely. You can scroll down. There's an internal shot with the graphics card. You can't really see. Well, you can see on the inside, not a whole lot going on. There's essentially a Thunderbolt 3 controller hooked up to a by 16 slot, a 400 watt SFX power supply in it, and that's it.
And a crap load of empty space for some reason.
Yeah. So that's a 580 in that photo, but I had a 1080 Ti in there that I tested, and there was still 3 inches of extra space at the end, which kind of begs the question of why this thing needed to be like. This is literally the size of a bread box.
Maybe they just had metal in that shape already.
Yeah, I mean, better safe than sorry. Like, just make it a little bigger, I guess.
You can almost do a mini ITX build in that.
There were smaller mini ITX chassis in this expansion chassis, so yeah.
So how much was it, did you say again?
It's right around $300.
Okay. It still seems pricey for what it is, but that's the least expensive that exists.
They're coming out with like a Node Lite for like 2 something, I think. I don't exactly know what the limitation is. I think it might be power supply.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, so it's got to have a decent power supply in it.
So this is there's no USB ports on this, no
There's
network
one
connections.
Thunderbolt port and a power jack in the back, and that's it.
Okay. All right. That's
no
that's bare bones.
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
Well, as opposed to like the Razer Core, which is $500 and gets you, it acts like a desktop dock, which is a much nicer product. But if you're just looking for a GPU, it's a bit excessive.
So what was the determination on how to test this, right? Clearly this picture here shows it connected to a ThinkPad laptop. Is it worth noting that this thing only comes with a 1 foot?
Yeah, it comes with a short cable.
That is the length of the cable it comes with.
Yeah,
it's
which
like
is stupid.
It's like a 1 meter cable, I would say. It's probably like a 3 foot cable.
Okay.
But I pretty much had to have the laptop on top of the machine while testing it.
Yeah.
And someone asked in the chat, does it charge the laptop? It doesn't. It provides like 25 watts of juice to the machine, which isn't enough, especially for gaming.
Yeah.
So you have to make sure your laptop has either another Thunderbolt port for charging, which the X1 Carbon does, or has another power jack like the XPS 13s
I didn't think about
do.
that. Okay, yeah. All right. So how did we go about testing it? So we looked at it. We wanted to look at it in terms of how did it improve gaming performance.
Yeah. So when I got this thing in the office, I did what any red-blooded PC enthusiast would, and I stuck a 1080 Ti in it, and I hooked it up to a laptop and went, "Let's go."
Yeah.
And we started playing some games. And it was stuttery.
Oh.
And we went, well, crap. Now we actually have to figure out why this is going on.
Yeah, so if you look at this graph here, what you'll see is we connected the GPU dock to a desktop PC with Thunderbolt with the same 1080 Ti in it. And we used it with the 1080 Ti installed in the PC. So if you look at this, the orange line is with the 1080 Ti installed in the computer.
And then that black mass.
The black line is the 1080 Ti in the Thunderbolt dock attached to it playing the game.
That does not
which is the most ridiculous setup in the world.
Correct.
We had an X99 motherboard with a Thunderbolt 3 add-in card and no GPU installed on the motherboard.
Correct.
And we're running our only GPU through Thunderbolt 3. Something no one would ever do, but it eliminates the CPU bottleneck.
Yeah. Correct.
Yeah.
So, and what we saw here is even with there being no CPU bottleneck, there's still a big difference in the frame time variance between it being in a Thunderbolt 3 dock and being installed internally.
Okay.
And it's not insignificant, right? If we look at the 95th percentile or so, you're looking at 3.5 to 3.75 of milliseconds of frame-to-frame variance, which is a lot. Usually, it just kind of in my head, anything over 3 milliseconds is probably something you'll feel while you're playing the game.
Yep.
And we did like notice this. It wasn't just like we ran tests and saw it. We kind of noticed that it was stuttery. And this is The Witcher 3 showing in the same comparisons a difference where the frame time variance looks to be the same, right? And if you look here, it is, but the performance is noticeably lower. Instead of getting close to 175 frames per second internally, you're getting more like 120 frames per second through the external dock. So there's definitely differences between these systems. And Dirt Rally, the same thing. This was actually interesting. Just to make things as confusing as possible, Dirt Rally, you had a significant frame rate difference where internally it was running at 190 frames per second. In the dock, it was running at like 125, 130 frames per second. But the frame variance was actually better on the dock than internally.
What?
Because Dirt Rally is just weird.
I can't explain it. It was extremely repeatable, so it wasn't errata.
Now that being said, it's very low either way.
Yeah.
95th percentile, we're at 1.1 milliseconds for the worst case. So what'd you do next? We took the same desktop
configuration and we tried it on a notebook. In this case, the Lenovo X1 Carbon 2017, which is a i5 7300U, I believe. It's a 15-watt dual-core hyper-threaded part, typical ultrabook part. Essentially, in my mind, what I think of when I think of an ultra-portable laptop, and what I think of when I think of the future of, hey, I can have this laptop and carry it around all day and it's thin and light, and I can come home and plug it into a GPU and play games. I don't have to have a dedicated desktop rig.
Yeah, makes sense.
So we did this. As an important note, there are different implementations for Thunderbolt 3 in laptops. Like Dell is seemingly notorious these days. Like all of their Thunderbolt 3 laptops connect by 2 instead of by 4, which it's supposed to be. So we did verify the ThinkPad is connecting at by 4, so it's 32 gigabits per second. It's PCIe 3. It was running at the intended bandwidth. So having that out of the way, we took those results from the desktop on the 1080 Ti over Thunderbolt 3 and we compared them to the ThinkPad.
So here's what we got. Hitman 1080p, the frame rate dropped from 110 to 60 frames per second, and frame variance went way up again. Right? So the orange mess is the ThinkPad with the external dock. The black is the desktop with the external dock.
Yeah, so, I mean, if you scroll up to the last set of results, you could look at what just a 1080 Ti is supposed to be in Hitman, like
this orange.
Yeah, that orange compared to scroll down the next orange is
bad.
Orders of magnitude.
Difference.
Yeah, no. 95th percentile, you're looking at almost 9 milliseconds of frame variance there through that. So clearly there's a difference of Thunderbolt implementation or CPU utilization does matter a lot. Because keep in mind, these are dual-core hyper-threaded processors in these notebooks, or in this notebook, for example. And you can see that, The Witcher 3, which showed good frame variance in both instances up top, the dual-core setup clearly shows a lot of variance issues there, as well as kind of a frame rate drop. And then in Dirt Rally, frame rate's about the same, but more variance than we had before.
I mean, Dirt Rally is also obviously the least GPU intensive game that we test anymore.
Yes.
So it's likely going to show less of this.
Yeah.
Variance.
And then you also threw in an RX 570 just to see.
Yeah, because my reasoning was I tried it with NVIDIA and the experience was pretty solid. You just kind of I had to update the firmware on the dock, but that was kind of a manufacturing thing. I had to update that through their little Windows app.
For it to work with the...
Just for it to work well with Windows. It was just on a different Thunderbolt 3 firmware. But after that, I installed the NVIDIA GPU driver, and it just worked. It used the internal display of the laptop. Everything worked fine. We used an external display off the GPU for testing because we needed to capture the video.
Right.
So we did that, and apparently using the internal display can lead to a little bit more latency, as you might expect, because it's sending the video back and forth.
But we did notice the same stuttering.
Yes, we did notice stuttering
in the internal and external displays, which is worth noting, right? So
So I figured I'd test out AMD's implementation of this stuff, which they call XConnect in their driver. It actually has like a little tray thing where it pops up. You can disconnect.
More developed.
It does.
Than the NVIDIA iteration.
And they were the ones pushing it when Thunderbolt 3 was coming out on the Razer core. Whereas NVIDIA was just like, we'll support that. Whereas AMD was getting ahead of it.
They were the first one I think we saw demoing it. It was at last not the most recent, 2 CSs ago. At their booth. Now we didn't put any comparisons in here because the 1080 Ti is not a good, like, it would not be a fair data point to put in there with it, but just to show that there were still variants in these games with the RX 570 running. It looks pretty equivalent, maybe a little bit less variance, would you say, on the 570 versus 1080 Ti?
I would say on a whole it's a little better.
Yeah.
And another thing is, like, putting a 570 in this thing is way more reasonable than putting a 1080 Ti in it. Assuming you could buy a 570 new for $200 or $180, whatever it is, and not the crazy mining stuff, it would be way more reasonable to put a 570 in this thing than a $700 GPU.
Yeah, I guess.
Because then you're in $1,000 hooking something up to your $1,500 notebook. You could have built a gaming PC and had better performance.
Sure. I do think the idea of if this all worked swimmingly, that a 1080 Ti and a dock that is just like, that's your gaming machine, technically, if it worked well with your laptop and you didn't have frame variance issues and all that type of stuff. The question in the chat room is, and I agree with this, do we think this is indicative of this dock or all docks?
I don't think the dock is the issue, because there are only a limited subset of Thunderbolt 3 controllers. I think there's like 2 or 3 of them. Okay. And we were using the Note has the better of all of them, the most compatible, the one that works the best, the one that delivers full bandwidth. I think it's not indicative of all notebook experience, though. I think in reality what you want is a true quad-core mobile CPU, thin and light machine without a discrete GPU, which is kind of like a unicorn at this point.
Right.
The machines you find with quad-core CPUs these days generally have a 1050 Ti or a 1060 in them. So you're kind of searching for the magical laptop with good cooling, a quad-core GPU, Thunderbolt 3.
Quad-core CPU.
Yeah, sorry. Quad-core CPU. Thunderbolt 3 with a true by-4 connection to the CPU. Right. And it's just not there yet.
I tried to talk with NVIDIA a little bit about why we were seeing the differences, and the PCIe bottleneck keeps coming up, right, as being a potential for it.
If it's only by 4, then
yeah, and as you run at higher frame rates, it puts more pressure on that connection as well, which may lead to some more like back and forth. Not throttling is not the word I'm looking for, but like, what do you call it? It catches up and then slows back down, catches up and buffers, and catches up and buffers. Oh. I can't think of the term I'm looking for. Yeah, something like that, where it gets to a point where it's sending up too much data, and then it's kind of waiting, gets into a wait state of some kind.
Which
that's maybe why we see this.
Which
frame
in the end
variance.
just gives you a judder.
Yeah. Right. Which is what we see.
Yeah.
So it's interesting nonetheless. We're getting at least one more of these in, I believe. No, that was a normal Thunderbolt 3 dock, not a GPU dock.
No.
So,
and also, it's not like this is such a common configuration that NVIDIA is like heavily optimizing for.
No, but they should. I mean, some of their like Razer sells a product that does this. True. Razer laptops with their external thing, and Dell sells one.
Well, Dell's is their proprietary connection, not Thunderbolt 3.
It's got to be PCIe.
Well, but they're abandoning that and going with USB 3.1 now. Like they're dumping the docks from their product lines.
You wouldn't use USB 3.1. Yeah. It would have to be Thunderbolt 3.
But Asus sells one of these. Yeah. Power Color sells one of these. Like there are a lot of traditional laptop traditional vendors in the space we would usually recognize.
Like component vendors.
Kitio or whatever is just kind of the cheapest one, and they make a good product. They really do. Like.
Yeah,
they make the bare bones product that has the best stuff in it, and just works for a reasonable price.
Notswinger asks in the chat, we'd recommend it for VR, and absolutely not. Like frame variance is the worst thing you can have for a VR, a good quality VR experience.
I mean, unless you ate something and you really need to get rid of it quickly,
right?
In which case, totally go for it. Right. But other than that, no.
It would be great for compute if you had some reason to do that. Like if you were doing, I don't even know, something at home that required compute, you could just plug in a GPU and it would work completely fine.
My machine learning tasks.
I did Bitcoin mine a little bit with it, or not Bitcoin, Ethereum mine for a little bit with it, and it was fine.
Yeah,
I would hope that would work. I would hope that would work over.
Certain people use
buy one,
essentially just like baling wire to connect GPUs to machines for mining.
Pretty much like Ethernet cable, you know. Yeah.
Before we get to our next story, we have 2 new patrons. We have Sean House, Heus. Hess? House?
House? I'm sure we covered it.
Sorry, Sean. We've got one of those accounts. He pledged $5.99. Thank you very much, Sean.
Thank you.
$5.99.
And David.
Thank you.
David pledged $5 as well. So thank you both to Sean and David. Thank you very much for that. Greatly appreciated. Maury posted a review of the Gigabyte X299 Aorus Gaming 3 motherboard. And despite the fact that it's a Gaming 3, which would kind of out of the box tell me this is like a low-end product, they still look like this. They're still LED lights. They're still metal reinforcement on the PCIe slots and on the DIMM slots and that type of stuff.
Metal reinforcement on the DIMM slots now?
I mean, I think
it just looks cool.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks cool, except the DIMMs cover up.
If you really pull on that memory module without undoing the hooks, you don't want the
but maybe you don't have all the DIMMs in.
I guess. I don't think I've ever seen anybody rip a DIMM slot off of a motherboard.
I don't think I've ever seen that.
Give them time, Al. You'll see one eventually.
Okay. Wait, Josh, did you say you did?
I broke a DIMM slot once, and a metal reinforcement would have stopped that.
Oh, okay.
Wait, was it?
There you go.
Was it Gigabyte or MSI that did the SMT DIMM slots at some point?
Oh,
they had surface mounted.
I don't remember who that was, but yeah,
it looked awesome from the back of the board because you didn't have the.
There's none of the solder points through. Yeah. That probably is the easiest way to get them ripped off of the board, though.
Yeah.
Right. True. The least amount of support possible.
Yeah.
So this is, in terms of X299 boards, this is kind of on the lower end version of that at like $260 or so.
The lower end.
I mean, just put, I'm just saying like it is. But it's obviously, the new LGA 2666 chipset for Skylake X processors.
Does it have the insane chart that says if you use this CPU, you...
Yeah, that was a Gigabyte chart, actually.
Yes, that would apply. That would apply
these
here.
DIMM slots stop working. These PCIe slots stop working.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. RGB Fusion is in here. You got smart fans. Not very much. This is part of the Gaming 3 versus the 5 or 7.
Yeah.
Not a whole lot of connectivity in the back.
It's got audio.
It's all you need.
It's got audio. It's got analog audio. It's fine.
It's got Ethernet. It's got audio. It's got some USBs.
Do you need than that?
It's got a PS2 port.
It's got a red USB port.
Literally,
what more do you need? USB 3.1.
What's the? Oh, red is USB. I thought pink was USB 3.
Depends on who you are.
Or light blue.
Pink. Who uses pink?
It's light blue. It's light blue.
It's light blue.
But this is
that red is like a charging port, probably.
Oh,
really?
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's got 10 USB 3.1 Gen 1 ports. One
USB
Type-C port on the back with USB 3.1 Gen 2 support, and one USB 3.1 Gen 2 Type-A red on the back for that.
Oh.
And then the Ethernet is Intel Gigabit LAN. So there you goes for that. Overall, a pretty good board. Maury's still kind of ramping up on the whole X299 platform in terms of like what are the expectations, what are your overclocking capabilities, those types of things. Obviously, there's a lot of discussion going on these boards in terms of
VRMs and heat.
VRMs and heat and all that type of stuff. Maury didn't run into any particular issues here, but it's definitely a concern for those who are doing kind of the super high-end overclocking.
There's that, and there's apparently still a lot of like rushed manufacturers rushing the boards out, not necessarily mapping all the options correctly. And
yeah, the BIOS configurations. We've definitely seen multiple, Gigabyte BIOSes, multiple MSI BIOSes, and Asus BIOSes come through all of our testing. So yeah, this actually gives you an idea here of there are 5 PCIe slots on this board, i16 size.
Yep.
Right? Physical size.
Okay.
Depending on the processor, here is your breakdown.
Oh boy.
Right? I'm not going to read it, but 44 lane processor, the highest end processors, the 10 core, you're You're going to get by 16 slots 1, 3, and 5 support full by 16, by 16, or by 16, by 16, 8.
Okay.
Yeah. And then slot 2 supports a by 4 maximum. And you go all the way down to the 16-lane processor, where 1 and 3 support by 16 or by 16
by 4.
By 4,
and then
slot 2 and 5 are disabled.
All right.
Right.
Well,
this is the kind of thing with, I don't know if this is an option, and maybe it's even on this particular board, but when you install your processor and you turn it on, LED lights need to come on next to the slots that you can populate.
Yeah, let's just put it on the silk screen.
The freaking slot should glow.
Yeah.
Like they should use
before you turn the system on, but when you power it. Like you flip it on, you turn on your power
switch.
supply.
Yeah, before you hit the power button.
So usually when you have the power button and the other
so
stuff light up,
yeah,
like there should just be running lights along all the slots.
I mean, it supports LEDs, so I mean, there's LED strips. There's something to that, but check out Maury's review / preview. He goes over benchmarks, and we still do some overclocking. Let's see, what did he get this up to? 4.7 gigahertz with a 3 gigahertz mesh bus and 3 gigahertz memory speed at 1.26 volts.
Mesh bus, yet another number.
It's like the QPI speed or whatever what was it called on Broadwell E? It was like the bus.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
FSB? Not FSB?
No, FSB's been gone for a long time.
I mean, people are still calling it FSB though, unfortunately.
No, they're not.
No?
No. Trust me, I wish we still had frontside bus.
I mean, yeah.
I want to go in jumpers.
It's just the clock.
In jumpers. $279 at Newegg. Goods are stock performance, overclocking potential, the price in terms of for X299 platforms at least. 2 RGBW headers, by the way. Weaknesses: CMOS battery placement, lack of third. So it only has 2 M.2 ports, probably fine. So SATA ports 4, 5, 6, and 7 are disabled with M.2 drive seated in the second port. Right, so it's just
turns off 4 of them.
Yeah, that's what he says. So there's 4 still available, and 4
by adding a single
M.2.
M.2.
Yeah,
it's not the usual ratio that follows, but okay.
Yeah,
usually it kills a
2
pair.
2 SATA.
Well, so it might not have to, but they might kill all of them because they tell you that's the slot to populate second.
Yeah.
So maybe they have all of the impetus on that one. If you do dual.
Yeah, but it should only have to take away 2 SATAs.
Sure, but it had to take away 2 SATAs for each, right?
No.
Okay.
For each M.2?
Never mind then.
No.
A 1 would be inherent.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like 1 SATA is like a pair of PCIe lanes. So M.2 is by 4.
Yes.
So
pair of SATA.
Gotcha.
2 SATAs.
So check that out. That's the Gigabyte X299 Aorus Gaming 3 motherboard preview / review from Maury.
Kind of curious.
We missed something on the rundown.
What's the VRM situation on X299 stuff that we've been hearing a lot about?
So it's not great.
Talked about that at all?
We haven't really. I've only done reading on it myself. No real hands-on with it. The issue stems around higher power draw with Skylake X than we saw with Broadwell E, and motherboard vendors either not having enough time to understand that and develop products accordingly, or underdeveloping products, or Intel not giving the right recommendations to motherboard vendors for this type of stuff.
Or at least in one case, it was like their options, like the BIOS level configuration for the CPU was like messed up to the point where it would turbo all of the cores to the
there's some of that,
like turbo all the cores to what would normally be the 1 or 2 core turbo number, and it would jack up the voltage levels to correspond to like the to make it work, and then you're drawing more power, like way higher TDP than the processors.
And we saw this in my overclocking testing, though I didn't equate it to VRMs and didn't look at those temperatures specifically, honestly, when I was hitting like over 100 C spikes on my overclocks.
Yeah.
I was like,
but if the VRMs were getting really hot, that would...
I mean, they're going to get hot because if you're drawing enough power to, VRMs are just going to get hot because of the power draw. It's not that the VRMs are necessarily even different from the previous generation.
Right.
They could be the same exact parts.
But might they need to be beefier if you're drawing this much more power?
And like, if you look at it, I think it has to follow on sort of Intel's recommendations for
I would agree
laying
with
out
that.
these boards, because if you look at multiple manufacturers,
They're all kind of having the same problems.
either it's not high enough quality components, or it's like the heat sinks over the VRMs being mostly decorative, because we haven't had to really worry about this in a while.
That's
so
a
they've
that's
gotten
a bigger
little lax on like actually making full contact
That's a
pipes
bigger one.
over VRMs and stuff. But a lot of people seem to be doing it. Just about everyone, as it turns out,
right?
If not everyone. So it seems like it probably has to fall on Intel if everyone is doing it.
Yep.
Yes. So that's kind of the state it's in now. I still need to demand a better answer from Intel on
why is the TDP so high?
Why is it drawing so much power when the TDP is not listing that? Right. And that's because that may be the fundamental issue is if you give all the documentation to motherboard vendors that say it's the power draw is essentially the same or 20 watts within 20 watts of our previous generation, but you actually are doing 75 to 100 watts more.
Yeah.
You might
that eats
quote
up the
unquote
margin.
underdevelop your motherboard power delivery situation some. So
you don't want to overbuild when it costs you money and you don't need to.
Correct.
Or you shouldn't have to overbuild by that much.
Right.
Yeah.
Before we switch to the next story, there was one missing from the rundown. It'll be real quick. Ken, RX 470 mining edition.
It's an RX 470 with one DVI port. Moving on.
Yeah, basically.
Okay.
And a crappy warranty.
Everything is the same, right?
Yeah, and a 90-day warranty. I think it was 90 or 180. I forget.
Yeah,
which one.
I think it was 90.
Yeah,
but it did hash at a higher rate than the other 470.
It hashed
because it had a different
memory
system. Because it was a factory overclock card versus a reference card,
okay.
and it had a different memory vendor. It was Samsung.
It drew less power.
Yes. No, no. So like you can get the other cards with Samsung memory on them. It's just a lottery.
Sure.
Right.
But this did draw 10 watts less power out of the box.
Yeah,
There's
but if you applied an undervolt to both of them, they perform the same.
Yeah.
Well, you saw the hash rate difference, but the
power draw
was the same.
Yeah. So don't buy any of these cards for mining because
just probably don't buy cards for mining.
That shit's busting.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway. Moving on. The real interesting story of the week is 10 gigabit Ethernet. Everybody needs it. Everybody wants it. Yeah. We have these cards here. We actually bought these. This is the Asus XG C100C NIC. This is what it looks like.
Cute little cards.
It's just a PCIe by one. Is that by one?
That's a by 4.
By 4.
Oh, by 4. Oh, yeah. Add-in card that does 10 gigabit Ethernet. Now, obviously, having one of these is not very useful, but it does support. It does, support gigabit. So if you buy one of these and put it in your system, it will still work with all of your gigabit switches and PCs and all that.
And 2.5 and 5 gigabit, which are the new standards.
Right.
Do they come with the other bracket?
Yes.
The half height.
The only other thing that comes in the box is the low profile bracket.
Okay.
Now, what was interesting about this, Ken, was like installation was easy, right?
Yeah. So
Nick.
But no, I mean like driver. Like you didn't. If Windows had the driver in it.
Yeah. So both the machines I tested were CPU test beds that we had updated to creators on Windows 10. So I'm not exactly sure what the wide array of support for this is, but it automatically pulled the driver. I don't know if it pulled it from Windows Update or if it had it in the installer because they were both connected to the regular network at that point. But absolutely pulled the correct driver. Wasn't even just like an inbox driver that happened to work. It was the correct driver.
It was the Asus driver.
It was the Quantia driver.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Which is just an INF file. So like no app to go along with it. No killer style app to run.
And no kernel driver from the sounds of it if it's just an INF.
I don't remember if there's a sys or not, but
it
was just a simple driver package exactly like you would want.
Let's see. Windows 10 64-bit driver package.
What are you looking at? So we bought 2 of them, put them in 2 PCs, connected them with an Ethernet cable.
With just a run-of-the-mill Cat5e.
Cat5e.
Yeah, Cat5e cable that we made 4 years ago.
Yeah.
That is pretty long. It's like a 30-foot cable.
Right.
Home Depot Cat5e. And it linked at 9.45 gigabits per second.
That's pretty close to 10.
The driver looks like it has more language crap in it than than an actual driver.
Yeah, usually.
Yeah.
INF is 12 lines, language package, 12 megs.
It's like a 6 meg download. Yeah.
So this is you're getting 9.5 gigabits per second, which if I do my math right, and by that I mean open up my calculator, divided by 8, you're at like 1.1 gigabytes per second.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
1100 megabytes per second. So, way faster than most systems can go. Like storage, any SATA SSD is going to be like 500-600 megs per second.
Yep.
So you can saturate that with this, right?
Well, it's half.
But if you got a PCIe SSD and you want to transfer something off of it,
yeah, it's a lot better than standard gigabit.
I would rather waste the headroom at the high end than be just kneecapped to 100 megs.
If you move stuff around on a network, which we do often,
large
files.
Yeah.
You think gigabit is fast gigabit's fast when that's your internet connection. When we got gigabit fiber, it was like, holy crap, this is amazing. But then our testing, we generate a 26 gigabyte file every 60 seconds. Yeah. And we want to copy that off to another location so we don't have to keep it on that machine at 110 megs per second. That takes a long time per file.
It does.
Now, if we can do a gig per second by buying 2 of these cards, how much are these, Ken? These like what, $100?
They're MSRP for 100. They're going a little over it right now because they're just starting to get in the channel.
So this is the
cheaper
type of
than
thing.
fiber.
And switches are expensive right now, right? Still.
Yeah. I mean, a switch is like $100 a port. So for like an 8-port switch, it's like $700 or $800 at this point.
Yeah.
Netgear, ProSafe are the small business ones that seem to be the cheapest.
Yeah, they have an 8-port for like $700.
There's an Asus switch that has the 2 10-gig ports and 6 1-gig ports, I believe. Okay. So if you only need 2 of these, like you had a file server in your desktop and you just want to be able to transfer fast between those,
right?
But the crap on your network that didn't need to be so fast,
right?
You could do that as an option. And Aquantia, who makes these network controllers, the cheap ones that are starting to get into the market from Asus. Aquantia sells these cards themselves for like $130. Gigabyte has announced them. I expect these to be all over the place at some point.
It's probably bundled in with motherboards too.
I think there's an X370 motherboard with it on board.
There's supposedly switches,
maybe.
Supposedly switches coming.
And at Computex, Aquantia announced they're working with Switch people to get it down to about $30 to $40 a port on a Switch.
Yeah,
and I would say people, prosumer type people that maybe do large video editing or whatever, and they were trying to back up to a network device or something like that, or a different system. This is something where, if that's important to you, spending $200 on 2 NICs and creating their own private network for just that purpose would be really beneficial. Like that's what
how we
did
all of our testing. Like,
yeah,
I mean, you have to self-assign the IPs in Windows.
Yeah.
Like the good old days with like a crossover cable, but you just do that and it works fine.
Yeah, so to me, this is probably the most, now storage is answered. Like we know how to do storage now. We fast NVMe storage, we're done. Like this is the next step, is how do you get at a consumer price point that fast of data outside of your machine. Mm-hmm. Thunderbolt could have been it, but it's still very pricey and the number of accessories are quite minimal.
And as a Thunderbolt 3, you can do 10 gig networking over a Thunderbolt cable.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
And the other thing, if switches become less expensive, then suddenly Thunderbolt to 10 gig adapters make a lot of sense as well.
You could do Thunderbolt 3 to Thunderbolt 3 on 2 PCs.
Right. I'm talking about for more machines on the same network. Yeah.
And when you switch from gigabit to 10 gig, you start to be able to change your mentality on some other stuff too. Like it gets to the point where you can actually scrub timelines of a video that's from across the network.
Right.
Like, you can do things that are like where the latency. Where normally you would have to, let me copy that over from the NAS to my local machine so I can do this edit.
Maybe I'll just run this installer instead of copying it.
Yeah, that too.
And another example is that machine over there we do our video capture on. We'll create 800 gigs of data in an afternoon.
Yeah.
And normally what we do is we transcode it on that machine, which is only a quad-core machine. That's a different discussion. Right?
It's like an overnight transcode.
Well, it's a couple of hours probably to do the whole thing. And then we copy the files off to the network server. What we would do now is we would put a 10 gig card in there and whatever the network server's on, copy that 900 gigs over, and then have that machine do the transcode. So this machine's not held up from doing further testing while the compression is occurring, right? So
and we haven't tested it, but potentially maybe you could just do the stream, like record the recording straight across the network. Might work. 10 gig,
Maybe.
you might have enough to do that.
It might.
Maybe.
Might work.
A single frame drop would be bad.
That's true.
That's
yeah,
the
we are
issue.
very sensitive to frame drops on the frame rate.
As an additional thing, just to make sure it wasn't like these Quantia stuff, NICs aren't just kind of weird and funky. We actually tested it to an Intel X550, their 10 gig NIC that's on the X99 EWS board.
Yeah.
Worked fine. Same speed.
Same exact speed.
So
Compatibility.
this to an
perfect.
Intel 10 gig E controller,
So
same
it
issues,
seems like
or
all
same
this will be
positiveness.
interoperable between any equipment you might possibly have, which I don't think you will, but if you're in an office environment where maybe there's partial 10 gig stuff, you can put some of these Quantia NIC cards in your machines. It'll be fine. And yes, we know you can get used 10 gig NICs off eBay for less than this that might have SFP connectors, might have RJ45s on them.
You can get SFP for cheaper, sure.
Yeah, I bought a $30 Mellanox SFP 10 gig card to put in our file server because it's a very short run. We have a ProSafe switch with an SFP port on it. It makes sense. $30, had the cable from doing our AD testing.
Right.
Absolutely great solution. But if you're looking for RJ45, $100 for a new product that didn't come out of some server is pretty damn good.
Yeah.
So you're supposed to be able to go 55 meters over Cat 6.
Mm-hmm. That's pretty far.
Yeah.
And like you're supposed to also be able to use like Cat 5e
Well, we did.
at a
Cat 5e
lower
will
length.
do it.
At a shorter length.
Sure.
But it's not
But if
that
anything,
much shorter.
And less bends.
If I've learned
Cat 6
anything
is
about-
more forgiving to bends.
Yeah.
if I've learned anything about Ethernet standards, is that they are way under promising.
Oh, yeah.
If you
'Cause-
can run a 600 foot, how far was
Was it 600 feet? I think it
It
was,
was
a
about
500.
that.
We took a 500-foot spool and crimped two ends on it.
Okay, so
Yeah.
we took a 500 foot Cat 5e and ran
It
100
between two
megabit.
buildings.
Yeah,
In the winter.
And it worked perfectly until
across
Outside.
the grass
the
outside.
lawnmower.
A lawnmower clipped it in the middle somewhere.
It did, but did not sever the
and
important
it
wires.
still worked.
I have that. I
it
have that.
desheathed the cable.
We cut that part of the cable out of it, and we have it somewhere still, I think.
Yeah, so now we have like two 200 foot cables.
Yes.
Actually, to be honest, that might have been what I used.
This
Oh,
was-
one of
half
those-
of that cable.
Half of that cable?
Or at least a
then
portion
that,
of
then
that
that's
cable.
probably
so-
100 feet. Then.
It was at least
Actually, I think it
cable
was
from
gray.
that same spool.
I think that one was gray.
Maybe. Yeah,
It was
you're
gray.
right.
Yeah, that
It
was great
gray.
cable.
Yeah.
But Ken used
You
a
know,
pretty
this is
pretty long length to connect
Yeah.
those
It's
two.
probably like 30 feet, if I had to guess.
It probably might be.
It was coiled up, even. Like, not good testing circumstances for the Ethernet cable.
That's true.
And
A
it
big
worked great.
inductor
Yeah.
he used to test
It's like,
this.
whatever. If it goes fast the first time, it's fine.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Josh.
So this is really reminiscent of one of the last kind of previous big jumps in networking technology, and that was, 10100 hubs got to be pretty affordable. Like, you can get a 5-port for $150. But in like 1999 is when the first switch chips came out that were really affordable. Like, you can get an 8-port 10100 switch for $220, and that was considered absolutely unheard of.
Yeah.
And I remember testing that, and the networking performance was night and day if you had like 3 or 4 computers on a hub versus
Oh, yeah.
on a switch.
Yeah.
And
You're
plus,
actually
I used to work
isolating
in a
the-
hospital where they had all these hubs, and we just called the closet they're in the collision zone because it was just pointless. But yeah, I mean, it's really kind of exciting because when we went from hubs to switches and 10100, I mean, that was just such a huge jump in usability and reliability and all that. And now we're starting to get to the 10G stuff that's
Finally.
$30 a port. It's nice.
It's I mean, 10 gig over copper maybe not RJ45. 10 gig over copper has been around since 2007.
Yeah.
It seems crazy that it's taken this long.
And another thing that's
Like,
interesting.
I understand it, but it's just, it sucks.
Another thing that's interesting, but it might not apply until these alternate chips start getting into more things like the switches and whatnot. But like, if you get one of those Intel NICs or the SFP stuff or whatever, like the fallback is 1 gigabit.
Yeah.
Or lower, right? This has a 5 gigabit
And 2.5.
and a 2.5 gigabit fallback.
So if you
Like
buy a
it's-
new router that might support 2.5 in a year
Yeah.
Right.
and doesn't support the full 10 because that will still be more expensive.
I mean, you're throwing
Still
away
use this.
some of the bandwidth this could do, but at least it would
Yeah.
work. The Intel NIC connected to that would just fall back to 1 gigabit.
Gotcha.
It doesn't have any in between.
So that's the reason to buy this newer stuff as opposed to some of the older stuff on eBay.
Stuff. Yeah. So that's the Asus XG C100C.
Just really a bad model name.
Yeah,
C100C.
I don't understand.
Because it's not 100 gigabit.
Yeah, I at first thought it was typing it as the XC like 10G, I think, which would have been a great model name.
Yeah. But no.
And then if you add in Roman numerals with C100C, it's like redundant.
100, 100, 100.
100, 100, 100. Nice.
Yeah.
What else we got on here? Let's see. Some VR stuff, very quick here. You can now get, I don't know how long this is going to last. They call it a short-term price reduction, but for $399, you can now get an Oculus Rift and touch controllers.
I think they said it was this summer. I think they clarified for the next 6 weeks.
Okay, that is $200. That's $200 less than it used to be, right?
Yeah,
it was $599 for the combo.
How many sensors does it come with?
I assume just 2.
Okay,
but it has to be at least 2 to support the controllers.
Yeah, you get your 2 controllers.
Yeah.
That extra sensor is $100, I think. So
I think that's right.
You mean if you wanted a third?
If you want a third one, yeah.
Well, you don't really.
You don't need it. I mean, you really don't.
Unless you need to spin around in a chair, face the other way,
and just get that cord totally tangled up on the bottom.
That's true.
Yeah, don't do that. So I realize like VR's uptick has been significantly slower than a lot of people wanted and expected, but for $399 is really impressive.
That's a really good deal.
How much? Because the headset by itself was $599 at one point, right, when it first launched.
Yeah,
and
Vive is still $800.
The Vive is still $800, $799.
Yeah.
I think they run like a $100 special at some point.
I think Amazon was.
Okay.
Actually, during Prime Day, you could get this Oculus package with a $100 Amazon gift card.
Yeah.
So
now I will say, like, the Vive is probably still my preferred platform for it, but I actually like the
headset.
The headset of the Rift is better.
The tracking on the Vive is better than Oculus.
Yes, and the controller, the design of the controllers, I like better for touch
on the Oculus.
The Oculus than on the Vive, but the Vive has better tracking again.
Yeah.
Like the optical tracking.
Yeah, you're back to that.
Is much better than the camera tracking, but still very usable and like very fun and playable, and there's a whole lot of title overlap and everything for that regard. So for $399, if you have a VR ready PC, it's a pretty
a VR ready
investment.
PC these days is like they qualified the 960 at some point, right?
Yeah,
with the async Space Warp stuff.
Yeah.
So like you might have a VR ready PC and not realize it.
Yeah, hopefully you don't have to buy a GPU.
Yeah,
that's a bad time.
If GPUs are at MSRP, you could buy this and a PC for less than $1,000 to do VR.
Yeah,
which is way better than the $1,500 it was when that crap came out.
Yeah, and then also. Scott wanted us to point out that the Razer HDK2 is $399 as well. And apparently, if you prove you're a student
if you
or
got
developer,
some sort of a educational or you're a developer,
right,
you get an extra 20% off. And if you are involved in, let's like say a university or a school, you can email them for a 2-for-1 promotion, which is kind of damn cool.
I just don't know enough about this one to tell anybody to buy it.
It
still has
it's
the term,
a developer kit.
It still has the term DK2 in it, which bothers me a whole lot because the DK2 is drastically outdated compared to the Rift and the Vive, right? And this doesn't.
But then this one's also playing with new protocols like OpenXR and a couple of other things that we haven't seen really yet.
Yeah,
but I don't really know.
It's very much a dev kit.
Yeah, no controllers.
Yeah,
I don't.
It's literally a dev kit.
I would definitely not recommend this for a consumer looking to play VR games.
Yeah,
definitely not that.
But if you want to learn how to program them and you're going to school for it, drop them an email.
It's true. It can't hurt. Get 2-for-1.
Yeah.
And then use them a lot. I don't know. Sebastian posted this up. Jeremy, what was the summary of the original story and then the response from Intel?
Well, I mean, see, the thing is that this Pentium G4560 was quite popular. It was cheap. What was it, about $60, $70?
Yeah, I think it was closer to 90 maybe, but yeah.
Yeah. It overclocked well, and a lot of people who are gaming on a budget picked the damn thing up because, hey, who cares if it's a Pentium or not? It works. You got 4 threads. I can't honestly remember what the frequency for this guy was, but it was
like around 3.
respectable.
It's like 3.2 or something, I thought.
Yeah, and you could probably hit close to 4 with it if you put a lot of effort into it. So essentially, they're just it was cannibalizing, or at least this is the theory that a lot of us support, is that it was cannibalizing a lot of Core i3 sales, which were slightly more expensive and in some cases nowhere near as good at gaming once you overclock it, because the Core i3 has some extra features in it which a basic gamer is never going to touch. They don't care, they don't need it, and those extra features cost an extra couple of bucks, so you're looking at $80, $100. So it kind of makes sense that, yeah, you kill off the 4560 because it's selling too well.
But
Intel is saying that, well, no, we're continuing to offer this. It's just that the demand fluctuation is such that it's disappearing off the market. So it looks like we're not making it. What it is that just so many have been bought that you can't get one.
It's almost like a bunch of people recently were building PCs with the cheapest possible processor they could find for a given
Because
platform.
they didn't need processing power. They needed GPU power.
Weird.
And this was a really cheap way to get a system set up.
that doesn't seem very likely, though. So what other answer could there be?
Yeah.
You know,
Blame the miners.
so I would say this. So like Intel, when they build a part like the 4560, they know that it's going to cannibalize something like Core i3 sales to the DIY consumer. They just don't give a shit, right?
Nope.
The
It
Core,
Because they
buys
get the
them
money
more
in the end,
favor
right?
To
the Core i3 is for like the business budget user, right?
Yeah.
for Dell and HP.
Yeah, and this is for, hey, stop buying those Athlons and buy this instead, right? So they know that they're kind of undercutting that market, but they're willing to do it because they realize this is not targeting an audience that's like, oh, I'm going to buy a Core i7, but wait, here's a Pentium 4560.
Yeah.
This is I have $80.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm going to buy the best part for $80. If you don't make it, I'm going to buy that Athlon.
It's
right?
true.
And so it makes sense to me that this is actually just a, quote, normal demand fluctuation that Intel used in kind of referencing the story that Sebastian wrote. But
Of course, if they cranked out a whole bunch more of them, there wouldn't be a supply problem, would there?
it takes a long time. You don't just
true.
pop a sticker on that baby.
And if they followed that, they'd be making crap tons of Celerons right now because the low-end Celerons for this platform also sold out. So for similar reasons. So they just have their entire inventory at Microsoft would just be Celerons.
And finally, sadly, not a NAND gate. Even if some of these RAM rumors were false, we are in for shortages. And I know Jeremy wrote this without looking at the author field, because rumors is spelled with a U after the O.
As it should be.
No, well,
Like
we
colors.
colors. Yes, the rumors are false.
The rumors.
Sounds more French than English.
Well, sure. What are we looking at here? Why do we have a wafer picture here?
Well, because we may or may not have seen 60,000 wafer starts die.
It's like a million tiny silicon voices all cried out.
Silenced forever.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of places like DRAM Exchange, which, keeps a very close eye on RAM supplies and just NAND market in general, reporting that there was an incident in a Micron plant, the Taeyoon fab in South Korea, where a bunch of nitrogen was released and killed off about 5.5% of what was currently on the line being produced. And it resulted in an evacuation of the plant. Micron has come back to say, well, there was an incident. No dies were harmed in the making of this incident, and we didn't have to evacuate our factory. So it's quite possible that rumors of the death were greatly exaggerated. But on the other hand, we're looking at a huge NAND shortage right now. Samsung is tooling up a bunch of stuff with its new technology, but it's going to be years before those fabs are, fully going at 100%.
Yeah.
And SK Hynix and Toshiba, well, they're already booked at 100%.
They're arguing about who's going to buy them.
Yeah, at this point, there's a very interesting argument about, well, we've kept trying to buy you. I think it's 6 times now, and people don't want it to happen, but it's going to happen. Just accept it. Grab those ankles, and away you go. So even like a 5.5% hit on the supply of NAND in the next couple of months is going to have a huge impact on prices that are already continuing to go up, because you simply can't ship a product with 95% of the storage you intended.
Oh, you can.
It's an all or nothing thing.
It's called over provisioning.
Yes. Yes.
But
Jeremy, does
if
this
the
help?
wafer's dead, the wafer's dead.
Jeremy, does this help or hurt the 10 cent per gigabyte directive?
It's not good for Ryan's Law. It is even at the best where Micron says, hey, we did have a little bit of an incident. Well, if you were shut down for even a little bit, Ryan's 10-cent law is getting pushed back a little bit further.
I mean, Josh can correct me on this, but if they have to shut down the line...
You're wrong.
Fair. They have to shut down a line in a fab for any reason. Restarting it takes a significant amount of time. Like, we're talking days or weeks, right? To restart a line on a fab.
They had to purge the whole nitrogen system, and everything that they threw through there, they had to just, obviously, as they mentioned, you got to chuck, because
anything that was in the line
doped up with stuff that you don't want in chips.
I hate when I'm all doped up.
I know.
Oh, you eat some chips and you get the bends? It's awful.
Exactly.
You don't want that nitrogen.
And I guess that sometimes, if it depends on the wafer and where it's at, if you don't go to the next step in a certain amount of time, you're looking to throw those away as well. So it's a big deal.
So glad I bought my
And it's all
SSD
because of oxidation.
a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
All right. Let's get into our hardware software picks of the week. I waited to the last possible moment to select. Nope. Wait, what the hell happened? What? Who? What? There it is. Ta-da!
Next.
I'm
pick.
so surprised.
Shocking.
I don't know if you guys have heard about this. This is the Asus XG C100C. It's a 10
You stole
gigabit
the
Ethernet
XG 100,
network adapter.
100, 100.
100, 100, 100.
It's a PCIe x4 card. It's a single RJ45
Okay,
port.
stop talking.
It's
Like,
got a
it's just-
hyper-fast
if
10
we already-
gigabit per second networking.
Yeah.
It
Okay.
delivers, quote, up to 10x faster data transfer speeds.
Ryan's pick
for
of the week. The thing on the
bandwidth
desk in front of him.
demanding
Yes. Okay.
tasks.
Got it. 2 of them. Yes. There's
It
the
does
second one.
support 100 megabit fallback.
I gotta ask,
Yeah.
did you discuss how hot that gets? I kind of missed that. I was zoning out
I don't know.
You know, I
because
didn't.
networking.
It has a
I-
pretty beefy heatsink on
I
it.
didn't take
It
any
is a
measurements
beefy hit
or
chain.
anything. I don't know. I did some sustained testing on it and didn't really see.
I mean, 10
any
gig,
issues?
it'll get warm, but I mean, I think 10 gig parts, like the earlier ones,
It's
were drawn
almost like people
10
have
watts.
like laser thermometers to measure heat.
Well,
We even
I
have a- we even
forgot,
have a
Josh.
FLIR.
So there.
Interesting side note. We got successive, or it's not successive. What do
Sequential.
you say? Sequential
Yeah.
serial number and MAC addresses on these 2 cards.
I think
You'll never be a
these-
good bank robber.
I think these NICs will be the start of something bigger at the office. So next time we have stuff looked up, I will try to get.
Yeah.
Agreed. After we were happy with it, I asked Asus for more cards. We're going to try to populate all of the systems with 10 gigabit cards. And
Are they going to send a switch?
I don't. They didn't.
What,
know
you
to
figure
make
out how to
one.
mine on them?
Asus doesn't make one.
I don't know if they make one on the
Not yet.
small business side or not.
Oh,
but
I asked.
I don't think they make a 10 gig one yet. Like that's,
Does it have any
8 ports or
wood
something.
glued to the bottom of it yet?
I mean, we
I
have
don't know.
We have a 16 port. I think.
Is it a 16? It's an 8 port 10 gig.
I don't know if it's 8 or 16. I can't remember.
The one that
Jim
Jim
bought?
Backer? That's
Yeah.
an 8.
That's not enough.
He did
Let's
not
see,
buy
1,
the
2,
several $1,000.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7 for
We
Jim.
could make it. We could sacrifice.
8 to connect to the other switch. So it's close. Alan, you don't get it. Moving on.
So the
Yes.
switch you have, how loud is that thing? So
Oh,
to have
very
a
loud.
couple of those.
Wait, what?
Gets hot.
Yeah, that Netgear switch
Oh,
is very
the fans.
loud. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
That thing
Yeah.
is just the obnoxious beast that should stay in a closet.
Will we be able to fix the power consumption and heat of this through process advancement, or are we stuck with hot 10
I think
gigabit
you're
Ethernet
stuck.
controllers.
I mean,
as far as them getting better,
Yeah.
I mean, these I'm sure draw less power than like the Intel
I mean,
like
what node
540.
do you think that is on?
We
Ryan?
could test that,
Like that's probably on a very old node at this point. Like,
yeah, I don't know.
because why would you shrink
it could be
for?
well,
Well,
unless
remember, shrinks only get you so far as like
sure.
it takes
Shrinks not necessarily because your heat,
the
your
power
your
for
distancy,
it's
your,
the power
your density
for the
increases
switching
again. Yeah.
of the thing. You know,
All right, Jeremy, what do you got?
I don't know. I was kind of desperate as well, but this sale was better than anything during the Steam Summer Sale. I keep meaning to play the Homeworld Deserts of Karak because, well, Homeworld kicked ass. And it's ridiculously cheap right now. So if you haven't bothered to pick it up, you can add it to your library for just under $20. And sometime in the next 12, 18 months, you might actually get a chance to play it.
It's really
It does look
good.
interesting. And for that price, yeah, all right. I'll add it. 'Cause
Yeah, for $20, that's amazing.
Nifty. Jorsh Schwerwerf.
You know what? I've always wanted one of these, and
We
now
just talked
kind
about
of
this
the time
yesterday.
is right. What?
We were just talking about this in the office yesterday.
yeah, I was trying to.
what, Instant Pot?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Instant Pot.
I didn't end up buying it on the Prime sale.
Did you buy it, Josh?
Yeah, it was no, not yet. I'm going to after we get some medical things done because it just it's a rice cooker, it's a pressure cooker, it does all kinds of things, highly programmable.
So explain to me
it's got a
what a
saute
pressure
button.
cooker does.
Okay, essentially a pressure cooker. So say like you've got an entirely frozen chicken.
Say I
Right?
did.
You put it in the egg port, you lock it up, you do the pressure cooking, and in 20 minutes you've got a perfectly cooked chicken because it
Okay, or a
increases
new
the
skylight.
pressure inside of the pot while heating, allowing for much better heat transfer.
the water
And so,
can get
yeah,
the water
pressure
can get
cookers are
hotter
wonderful
before
things.
boiling.
Oh,
Yeah, I mean, stuff won't boil.
Oh,
and-
okay. So you put the items under higher pressure so that you can heat it further
STP,
without
baby.
boiling the water off.
Increases the boiling
I see.
temperature
I
of
see.
the water.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And like obviously pressure cookers aren't a new technology, but
No.
a fully digital pressure cooker is
With timers and
is a
delays.
newer thing and apparently is way easier to use than the older analog ones where they're kind of
And
dangerous.
it's a lot
People
safer
do some
because
stuff
they've
with the
got
analog ones.
the ability
Yeah.
to measure pressure inside, and
Yeah.
if something goes wrong, to turn off.
Yes.
Rather than have you
Explode.
seen that
Yeah,
picture of the
because that's
pressure
what
cooker
happens.
gone bad?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I meant. You might have a new skylight when you get home
Yeah.
Yeah.
if things go
Yeah.
poorly.
So-
So I've got to ask,
Okay.
why does it have a yogurt button?
Make yogurt with.
You make yogurt at a high temperature.
Well, I mean, it's
I've
a
never made
relatively
yogurt
low
before on
temperature,
purpose.
but
Well,
it's
it's a-
still
it's a
high.
It
steady
says right here,
temperature. It's-
yogurt maker.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't
Okay.
You do
you don't make
everything.
yogurt at the refrigerated temperature. Like
No.
Just like you
if
make
forget
cherry
about the
pie
milk,
and you
yeah,
put
you
it
do.
in the fridge.
you
'cause
need to
you're a sane
accelerate
person.
the bacteria, yeast stuff, whatever.
So is this
yogurt
only?
stuff.
Let me ask you this. Pop culture quiz, everybody. This is only popular because like sous vide became a thing, and now like quick ways of like cooking conveniently are more popular.
I don't
Because you
know.
said pressure cooker's been around
Yeah.
for a while, and this.
I mean, Kentucky Fried Chicken. That's all chicken cooked in pressure cookers.
oh, is
with
it okay?
21
Oh, yeah.
herbs and spices or whatever the hell that is.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is, when does the Wi-Fi connected pressure
exist.
cooker come out, and when is it on Kickstarter? It's got to exist, right?
You can already buy
Charlie.
them, and people are already getting upset because it decides to do an update while they're trying to cook, and of course stops cooking to
Fair.
install the update, and then it loses the internet connection, and now you're stuck with a frozen chicken and a pressure cooker that ain't going to work because it's got to be SOD. It's
Awesome.
already part of the Internet of Shit.
Cool. All right. Alan.
So I was looking for ways to tweak other stuff in Windows lately.
Yes.
Other stuff.
Wink.
Stuff that you don't normally think to tweak, but actually is tweakable. Like for example, when you go to shut down or reboot Windows, and then it hits you with this prompt Like, hey, you got programs that like, Notepad wants to save your document or something. Right. Like that'll stop the reboot.
Just hold down the power button.
Well, you don't have to do that. There's actually a registry key that controls like whether or not the system waits on that stuff. Like you could just tell it, hey, just don't ever bother with that. Just freaking reboot because I told you to reboot, right? Damn it. So that's one of the tweaks. And then the site that linked to that tweak had it grouped in with a batch of them, which is the tweaks.
Collection of best registry tweaks to speed up your Windows.
Yeah, but the tweaks were for Windows 7, but the majority of them still work, even all the way like through Windows 10, because they're just generic toggles for.
Like what kind of stuff? What kind of things we got?
They're all listed under that. Like you can it changes the timeout for how long. Like if an app is hanging. Like before it, if you're just trying to close the app that was hanging, you kind of have to sit there and wait for the window to kind of gray out, and then once you click X, you got to wait a little bit more for Windows to decide if it's like gonna just close it. And like you can reduce all those delays.
I like this one. No low disk space checks.
Nice.
That one I think might be a little bit overkill.
Don't do that one. Maybe that's important.
I think we're beyond the point where everybody's running out of disk space on their C drive constantly.
No, I mean, with SSDs, it happens.
But
SSDs, with SSDs, that's going to happen.
I guess.
And I think you should want to know.
I personally kind of want to know that one. Like I might not use that one. But there's like, when you hover the mouse over something and you're waiting for the tooltip to show up, it changes that timeout. So it's like almost instant.
Okay. Wait to kill service timeout. No interrupt. No internet open with.
Nice.
Disables search on internet prompt in open with window.
Disabled.
If your shortcut is a broken link and Windows sits there and spins for like 20 seconds trying to I'm looking for the program that this was,
well, it clearly doesn't exist
I freaking
anymore.
deleted it. That's why the link's broken, right? So it gets rid of that stuff or shortens it or, it's just a bunch of little tweaks. It's actually a relatively, they list all of the registry entries that get done on that like second page there. And it's not that many. It's like, it's like 10 keys or 10 values, like across 5 keys. So just, interesting tweaks.
We won't give you the URL for it. Find the link at the show notes for today.
Yeah, links in the show notes. There's not really a easy way to link that.
And then, Alex, you had one as well?
I did.
What do you got for us?
It's this little thing right here that I've been using for weeks now. It's the Corsair... Scimitar?
Scimitar. I'm going to say Scimitar.
Yeah.
Scimitar.
It's got a really nice array of buttons on the left side. I've been using this for video editing, and it's amazing.
Can you use like a number pad on the side of the freaking mouse?
Yes, it's a 12,
it actually is.
It
1, 2,
is
3, 4,
Half
5,
of
6,
a
7, 8,
keyboard
9.
attached to a mouse.
Yep. There you go.
Huh.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
11, 12.
It's got 12 buttons.
The software is not bad. I thought
Too bad there's no ball in that mouse.
Yeah.
Because there was a ball rolling around in that video, so
but no, I was pleasantly impressed by it.
That's good because I will say I agree with Ken. We oftentimes others have to sit there at that desk and use the video editing machine. It takes a little getting used to because I'm just kind of used to my thumb
resting
going
on
in place
something.
there.
Yeah.
And if you do that, I mean, you can still kind of rest your thumb there, but you have to be lighter with it. Otherwise, you're going to accidentally hit one of those 12 additional
mash
buttons.
a bunch of buttons.
When you said you mapped volume to it, right?
I did.
And like,
I mean, obviously, I've used Premiere a lot, and that seems like it'd be an amazing thing. Like, you're absolutely right. Mapping common Premiere functions to that, or any sort of...
You could map like cut paste, like just different.
Changing the volume. Yeah, I mean that seems like an awesome thing.
Yeah,
So-
and it's low. It's not very expensive. It's a $69 mouse.
Yep.
That's surprisingly.
Plus, it's got lights and shit.
Yeah.
Oh,
When are they coming out with the mechanical version?
Yeah, the mechanical switch
I
version.
want mechanical
Yeah,
keys
you
on
want
those.
cherry.
No,
You want cherry switches
Cherry
on the
MX
buttons.
Blues.
the side switches are mechanical.
Oh,
perfect.
well, they have like clicky. They're like mouse button mechanical.
Yeah, I mean they're clicky mouses.
They're not scissor switches.
No.
Not membranes.
Yeah.
All right, that's cool. Before we end the show, we did get
my pick of the week is
What?
the second Asus NIC on your desk.
the other one?
So which serial number do you want?
I'll take a higher one.
Okay, you get 190. I'll take 189.
Okay.
Okay.
You think that's probably is the 189th and 190th of these cards?
It would seem likely.
Because the serial number ends in 000190.
Yeah, that's probably the case.
There's other stuff before it, but like hex, text and whatnot. So there you go. If anybody wants limited, like first run, limited cards, there you go.
000-190.
Well,
just signed
189.
Yeah.
Anyway, we had 2 Patreon contributions. Bim Paras pledged $3. Thank you, Bim. And Edsel Malasig, Edsel, $6.99
$6.99
was pledged. So
It's got
thank
a-
you
it's
to
got
both
a-
Edsel and Bim.
Thank you.
There was an exclamation point at the end of that name. Or is that just
And
part of their
thank you.
sentence?
I think that is always.
Oh, okay.
Yes, it is. Patreon wants to be very exclamatory about
Somebody's giving you money.
donation,
Yeah.
like that type of thing. So thank you guys very much for that. Super, super appreciated. That's going to be the end of the show. PCPro.com/podcast is where you can find all the show notes to our discussion today. So if you want to look up a story or review or a pick of the week that we had, all the links are there. So PCPro.com/podcast. It's also where you find like the YouTube videos, the RSS to download the MP3 or the video file or whatever you want to do. All that is available there. And that's it. We will be back next week with another episode of the PC Perspective Podcast. I don't think I said that word all the way, but I'm Ryan Shroud.
That's real optimistic thinking on your part.
I am nothing if not optimistic all of the time, 100%. I almost said 100 days of the year, which is maybe more accurate.
That seems more accurate.
Actually, yeah.
Everything sucks. Oh, hey, payday.
No, that would assume I get paid every third day. That does not. That's definitely not the case. All right,
Can
everybody.
we move to that? That'd be nice.
No.
Okay.
You get $3.
Sending checks to Canada is very
It's
expensive.
$3. You have to subtract out the postage.
You need 2 American flag stamps, as we found out.
That's true. That's very true. All right, everybody. See you next
Yes.
week. I'm Ryan Shroud.
I'm Jeremy Hellstrom.
I'm Josh Walrath.
And I'm Alan Malventano. And then there's Ken. And then there's Alex.
Good night.
Good night.
And Johnny Boy. And
Like I am spreading.
Lights are calling you.
Are we streaming again?
Spreading what?
Jeremy, do you feel like when you get your check in the mail, do you feel like freedom has been spread northward every time?
yes, because your stamps are pretty impressive.
Full on American flag freedom stamps, I call them.
Yeah.
Otherwise known as forever stamps, but freedom stamps is
Yes.
more accurate.
It's got an F in it.
What else was I going to say? No, that's it.
But yeah, that was silly when they doubled the stamps on you.
Well,
I guess that
no.
was a
So
while
here's
back.
the thing. Here's the thing. The amount of postage it takes to send a letter to Canada is somewhere between 1 stamp and 2 stamps. And what I used to do is when I
Red
had
stamp and blue stamp.
Yes.
stamps.com service, I would print
Use the
out.
offer code. Oh, no.
Yeah, I would print out
Yeah.
all my stamps, and so I would just print out ones that were exact to the postage to send one to Canada. But you have to pay like $20 a month to have stamps.com.
And you were not
meters
sending
are
enough stamps.
insanely
.com.
expensive.
Yeah, so I just said, screw it, I'll spend 47 cents times 2 as opposed to 59 cents or 68 cents, whatever it actually is to send.
Plus $20.
Right. So
Could have just got a
Yeah, 'cause
roll of
once a month.
Canada-specific stamps for
I don't
Jeremy.
think they sell those.
Oh.
I don't think they sell Canada. Like at one point, I was even getting like
They're made of snow. When you
you can
lick
get
them, they
stamps
just
for
sort
like
of
10
disappear.
cents and a penny.
Actually, so if you go to post office now and buy stamps, it's an automated kiosk, so you can like they leave the lobbies of post offices unlocked because PO boxes, so like you can get them 24/7. And whenever I'm buying stamps, it's usually because I forgot about it, so I go there after hours and I buy the stamps. But it like prints it out and it has a barcode under it. So I wonder
That's what stamps.com did.
I wonder if it's an option from there if you could get
If I could get a
like-
specific denomination,
yeah, because just like prints out a sheet of stamps.
maybe. I guess I could look. That seems like a lot of effort
It
to
could be
me.
worse. I mean, for the longest time up here, they kept changing the stamp prices so frickin' often that it essentially just said P in the corner.
So they
which
did that.
meant
They
for
did that here,
permanent.
and that's why they made forever stamps.
Yeah.
Which is basically I thought maybe at one point I was going to buy $100,000 worth of Forever stamps because like these are going to be good forever if I buy them at 41 cents and suddenly stamps are 49
Well,
cents.
that's
I'm
not
making
necessarily true.
16% profit if I can sell them again. But actually, didn't stamps go down recently? Like
Yeah,
the last
they did at one
price
point.
change
And
went
now
down.
all stamps are Forever stamps.
Oh.
Forever stamps held a premium at some point, but now it's just whatever
No,
stamp.
Forever stamps were always the same price as a stamp, like the base
That doesn't
price
make
of a
any
stamp.
sense, though.
No, they did it as a convenience.
Yeah.
They're really the only people that buy
Well, because they had to
non-freedom
recall them,
stamps.
reprint them,
You
stamp
can't
the
buy
new
non-forever
currency on
stamps
it
anymore.
You can for collector stuff, like stamp collecting,
Oh.
like with Elvis
So-
on them and shit. Whatever people put on stamps now. I
They
don't really
put
know.
shit on stamps.
You eat
For
pieces of
breakfast.
shit for breakfast. So I booked a trip for just me and my daughter to fly to Florida for 3.5 days.
Yeah.
I have no idea how this
You're
is going to
brave,
go.
man.
I know. I am. Or stupid, one or the other.
Yeah,
It was so
well,
funny because like I travel a lot for work, and Kelly gets the bad end of that because she's always home with the kid and the dogs and all that stuff. And she was, not complaining. I would say a couple weeks ago, was talking about she never gets a break from the kid, right? Even when the only time she's not with Emmeline is when she's at work. And she's like, you get to go out of town and you go to dinners and do all that stuff. I said, okay, that's fine. So I came up with this idea. I was like, okay, I'll take him to Disney, super cheap flights, super cheap hotel. We got the passes. It's not going to cost very much money. And we'll go for Wednesday to Saturday. And then she was like, well, I want to go. And I was like, no, this defeats the purpose.
I think you're supposed to send her there and you two stay at home.
And she would probably do that too, yeah. So I finally convinced her. I was like, no, we're gonna go, and now you just have to figure out what to do for 3 days by yourself. So I think she'll come up with something.
if
you
she's
feel-
anything like my wife,
What do you got? What's going on,
after the
Alan?
first day, it's gonna be calling you. It's so quiet here. It's so lonely.
You know what that
It's
means,
like go
Josh?
play some multiplayer games.
You know what that means, Josh?
Oh man.
Bug in the studio.
That's happening
Flying
a lot,
around.
like flying moth. Maybe I need to get one of those air things that blows straight down in front of the door that
Maybe
keeps
we
people
just
from
close
coming in.
the door
That seems dumb.
and make people use the doorbell if they want.
We have to charge the doorbell.
Yeah.
That's a problem.
We have to reinstall the doorbell.
Doorbell's installed.
Oh,
It's just not
dead.
charged.
It didn't do anything.
Could we run hard power to the doorbell?
We can wire the doorbell.
Not in that location.
Why don't you get one of those little things where it's like
Drill through the steel door?
you got to do three pumps on this handle to charge the doorbell, and then go ahead and ring.
That's true. Like those emergency radios with the
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah,
you
you
can
have
hear
to crank,
just enough of the
turn this
tornado
crank.
warning to know that it's coming.
turn this crank to ring the
somewhere.
doorbell. Just make the doorbell a hand crank.
Knock harder.
Just
idiot.
pretend you're using a very old telephone. And we're off and running.
Undermined in the chat asks how the mosquito thing worked out, and I don't know the answer to that because we were gone all last week.
Is there a giant pile of burned bug bodies
Exactly.
underneath the lamp?
Yeah.
No, because we actually hired spray. We did hire a mosquito service as well.
No.
And in addition to the thing you bought?
Yeah.
Ryan is winning the war on bugs.
I think so. Although, so here's the thing.
I think
Actually,
so.
I need to call them back because they have this. It's through ChemLawn, True Green, some one of those companies, and they have this thing where it's like if after an application, you see any like biting insects,
Any?
that's what they say. I don't know what the fine print is. Call us and we'll come out and do a reapplication. And last night,
What about your cousin Zach? Does it apply to him as
yeah,
well?
no, for sure.
yeah.
Last night I was literally sitting there. I had my hand on the swing set, watching Emmeline, and I saw a mosquito on my hand. Actually, see, I'm not like really allergic to them. I saw it, and it was actively feeding off of me.
Mm.
And And I was
Did
like,
you squeeze your hand and make it pop?
it was like right here on the outside of my hand.
Oh.
I was like, you son of a bitch. Just like,
You having a conversation with him?
yeah, because it wasn't hurting.
Yeah.
Right? I was just like, and I was kind of interested to watch it work. And then I went,
Watch it go.
Feed on you.
and killed that mother and then moved on with my
Yeah.
life.
And he spurted blood
But
everywhere.
it's interesting because like I don't even see where that occurred on my hand. But if it happened to Emmeline, she'd have a huge welt there today. So I guess I need to call him and say, did you do an application? Yes. Then come back out because you sucked at it. Kill all of the bugs. Every bug.
That's
Every bug that exists.
not as easy as it sounds.
Yeah.
Food chain be damned. Who cares about that? Thinking food chain.
Mosquitoes
I
have
think we
no
can manage
positive
without mosquitoes.
Yeah.
value.
They
Isn't that,
feed
isn't,
amphibians.
Carrying disease.
yeah.
Yeah, that's what
Amphibians
they're there
have
for.
plenty of bugs to eat.
I think I even read like a thing,
But,
like an
but
interview
mosquito
with.
larvae. That's the big one for toads
Well,
and
all right, I'll give you that.
salamanders.
But you got dragonfly larvae in the same niche.
Not in the numbers of mosquito.
True.
I think Bill Gates is a pretty smart guy. And I'm pretty sure I read an interview with him once when he was eradicating disease in foreign countries. Because that's what you do when you're Bill Gates. That he talked about like mosquitoes having no inherent
Value?
Ecological.
They're
value.
significant
biomass.
ecological value.
Oh, okay.
Nah, they are. They're biomass.
Let me see. Let me
Doesn't
Google
like
this.
the- don't like the
Bill
frogs eat
Gates,
'em?
If
Bill
you were a
Gates-
tadpole, you would have a different opinion.
Yeah, like the frogs.
Yes, you like mosquito larvae.
I'm not.
Love
No,
that.
I
So the
hate
problem
it. I
is
wanna
we
burn
need
all of it.
more tadpoles.
Oh.
To
Sure.
thin out the mosquitoes.
Yeah,
What
it
do we
says-
need tadpoles for? We can just keep this going and going.
It says they're important in aquatic
I
ecology.
seem to think there's some we need more of this that ended badly.
Tadpoles lead to a good French meal.
Mm.
Oh.
Game
Yeah.
anything that feeds on them, such as game fish, raptorial birds, etc., would in turn suffer. What's a raptorial bird?
Well, also bats.
Velociraptor.
Bats feed on tons of mosquitoes.
Yeah, it's a bird that runs
True.
around.
So I like bats and spiders.
To every migratory species of raptorial bird that captures living quarry, there is a non-migratory counterpart or near relative. No shit.
Oh, is this the argument for if you lost the
Tadpoles lead
raptorial
to
ones
good
then it wouldn't
French
matter?
people.
Raptorial is
No,
predatory.
good French meals.
Predatory birds eat mosquitoes?
No, they eat things that eat mosquitoes.
Oh,
Like fish.
Yeah.
okay.
They go
Gotcha.
after the little fingerlings and the small frogs.
Interesting.
Like French people.
It's the
Now,
circle of
ticks.
life.
Ticks.
Screw
Are-
ticks.
Yeah.
Yes, they
Burn
have
them.
no value to the ecology whatsoever.
So I had
Who
a
eats ticks?
I had a meeting
Nobody.
with somebody the other day. I was supposed to have a meeting with somebody last week.
It's Soviet Russia.
And I said, hey, I haven't heard back from this person, just checking in. And the reply was very people are busy, their email short terms. He's like, he's recovering from Lyme disease. Check back next week.
oh, wow.
And I was like, oh my God. And I was like, oh my
Well,
God.
once it's diagnosed, hardcore
so sorry.
antibiotics. We'll
I'm so
clear it.
sorry to hear that. And the response was, no, he's fine. They caught it early. It's responding to medicine. He'll be back on Monday. And I was like, okay.
Oh, a friend of mine is
All
on
right.
was on antibiotics for ticks.
Yeah.
Recently.
Yeah.
Yeah. They put them on
Nothing eats
like
ticks.
like
they don't
frickin-
pollinate anything.
I think it
They're
was like
awful.
tetracycline or something. Like serious.
Yeah,
frickin-
yeah.
Like
Yeah,
the-
no, it's a hardcore antibiotic they put you on. But
He's
it
telling me
works.
about it. I was like,
So
that's
after I
like
got
up
this
there.
email, I spent that night because we were on vacation, like sitting in bed while everybody else was asleep, like reading about Lyme disease
Oh,
and
great.
what it did. And
And so by the end of it, you were convinced you had Lyme disease, weren't you?
no.
It doesn't involve citrus at all.
Yeah.
LIME. This isn't coming up at all. But yeah. So apparently he's doing fine now.
Well, that's good.
So there you go. But yeah,
All
no,
right.
screw ticks.
Yeah.
Anything else going on? Like I said, we've got that water cooled Vega coming in. Don't know why. We're gonna test it. We'll just see what it does.
Good luck.
Because
See
you're
what that
thorough.
extra 75 watt
Thorough.
TDP gets you.
Yeah, we will.
Maybe
We
they'll
will.
launch a new driver at some point. That'd be
I
nice.
can ask him.
Maybe.
I did tell AMD today. I said, just a heads up, I'll have my water cooled Vega on Friday.
You want to buy it?
Yeah.
Will
buy it back?
you please buy it from me?
You want to buy it back?
I have 2 air cooled Vega Frontier editions
You can do
that
triple
were purchased for
crossfire.
$9.99.
Triple crossfire.
that I cannot return, and I wouldn't.
guess
I
you
wouldn't
could
really.
do triple crossfire.
I wouldn't really
testing.
feel right returning them, but I probably would. But like,
You return one of them.
if you look on eBay, there's a ton of them listed for like $980 to
I mean, you could just
$1050.
buy one off Newegg still. So
Yeah, they're just in stock.
I wonder
so
if the
it's
water
not-
cooled one is in stock.
I don't know. You can check to see if they
Just
shipped out their
sell
whole
it on
allotment.
eBay and
I don't want to. I just want to. I don't know.
what?
I don't know.
You want your money back? Get your money back.
But that's not getting my money back. That's getting some subset. Yeah, the water cooled version shows out of stock.
Well, maybe it'll be rare.
And for some reason, the air cooled version says sale ends in 6 days. And even though it's not for sale.
There's no
Pay it for
sale.
$9.99. The sale ends in 6 days.
In stock, limit 5 per customer.
Yeah, they're probably going to increase the price.
That's a lot of people are buying 5 of those.
I think they really feel like they could get away with the price increase, so they're probably going to go ahead and do that.
$14.99 and $9.99 I paid for these two from Newegg. That might have been my most expensive Newegg order. Nah, that's not
That
true.
doesn't seem likely.
That's not true. I bought servers and stuff from here before. Oh well. All right, everybody. That's going to be it for the show. Next week is, let me check the calendar, the 19th.
I think we'll do it Wednesday.
Yeah, we'll probably do it on Wednesday the 19th. I'll be here. The next week is the 26th. I should be here. The next week.
Don't go any further because then we're in
Is
August, so that's just
QuakeCon
depressing.
and you're gonna be here?
No, the next week is the first week of August. QuakeCon's like the end of August, I think.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. That's why that's why my whole schedule got screwed up. Last year, QuakeCon was the last week of July, wasn't it? Or first week of August? It was early.
Last week of July, I think.
I think the next August 2nd, I should be back. That's during SIGGRAPH, right? Yeah. I think so. And then the next week's the 9th. Alan's supposed to go to Flash Memory Summit. That's not the middle of July at all, Alan.
I didn't say July.
I'm sorry, middle of August.
I said second week in August. It's the second week in August.
Oh, and the week after that is my daddy-daughter trip to Orlando.
Ooh.
And then after that would be QuakeCon. That next weekend would be QuakeCon. And then that next weekend after that would be PAX.
True.
Just too much going on in the summer. It's too hot. Too hot.
Microsoft Ignite is at the end of September. And Oculus Connect is October 11th and 12th. Halloween's October 31st. And that's as far as my schedule goes. Oh no, there's a Qualcomm event in December too. Look at that. Planning out ahead. All right, guys, that's it. We will we'll see you next week. Check the site for stuff. Sign up at the mailing list, or follow me on Twitter, and I'll let you know if we do end up doing a live stream for the Frontier Edition water cooled card. I kind of think not, because I think a lot of it will determine when FedEx delivers it. And we really have no idea what time of the day they'll show up. They're usually earlier than UPS, but it's not a priority overnight, so it's not here by 10 or something like that. So it's hard to determine. But if you want to make sure sign up for that mailing list. All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Bye.
Good night.
See ya.
Thanks for watching.
Bye, Jeremy. Bye, Josh.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye, everybody else. Okay, good night.
Buttons.
Buttons. Bye.
Buttons. I don't know what buttons to